Can we extract bacteria from the decayed matter to infect other creatures? 1 week later, in the biological group's laboratory, the leaders from the Human Command Center gathered here. Wang Lin excitedly pulled back a curtain, revealing a glass wall behind which were the starry armored beasts. However, these starry armored beasts were clearly not right. They stumbled as they walked and appeared emaciated, like they were on the verge of death. They no longer had the overwhelming power to charge at everything. Even when they saw humans, they merely weakly raised their forelimbs in a show of defiance. After research, we have found a way to restrain the starry armored beasts. This is a virus specifically designed to combat them. It can weaken the starry armored beasts to the point of being unable to withstand a single blow within 3 days. Humanity has hope, Wang Lin exclaimed. Xiao Yi clenched his fist tightly. Finally, all the hard work was worth it. After holding on for so long, humanity had finally seen the dawn of victory. How long will it take to cultivate a large amount of this virus? Xiao Yi asked. We can spread the virus right now, Wang Lin replied. Within a month, the starry armored beasts will all be infected. They will be utterly defenseless. Great. Long live our victory. The crowd erupted in cheers, and this news quickly spread throughout the Steel City walls. Soon, dozens of flatbed trucks rushed to the laboratory, loading one infected starry armored beast after another onto the vehicles, which then drove off in various directions toward the steel walls. Before long, sickly starry armored beasts were thrown over the steel walls, mingling with the pack of starry armored beasts outside. The virus began to spread among them. 3 days later, the starry armored beasts stopped attacking the steel walls. They stood weakly, scattered about like aging worms, moving slowly and no longer possessing their former strength. In stark contrast, inside the steel walls, groups of well-prepared and spirited mech warriors, armed with various weapons, were eager to rush out. With a single command, countless sections of the steel walls slowly opened gaps. Charge! Xiao Yi shouted, and the mech warriors surged out, rushing toward the gaps like a tide of machines, heading into the boundless world. The battle had finally lost its suspense. The affiliated hospital of the command center, Jin Hongyi, with a look of melancholy, was recuperating. Since returning from the ancient ruins, he had been staying in the hospital for recovery. He always believed that there was something wrong with his nerves. Xiao Yi walked in, sat down beside his bed, and said, You know, this time humanity has achieved a great victory, and you should take a lot of credit for it. Jin Hongyi looked at Xiao Yi in surprise. Why? Xiao Yi replied, The manuscript you brought back is not just random doodles. It actually contains content. Jin Hongyi looked at Xiao Yi in disbelief. He was well aware that those doodles were a mess, like a child's scribbles, with no content whatsoever. He had looked at it several times afterward, and each time it was the same. Commander Xiao, you don't need to comfort me. I know I didn't do well this time. Once I recover, I will go back to the ruins, Jin Hongyi said. Xiao Yi patted his shoulder. You're not sick. Get ready. I also want to go to the ruins. Seeing Jin Hongyi still looking confused, Xiao Yi continued. I saw content in the manuscript that others couldn't see. And it was from this content that I found hints about extracting the virus from the star sky beetle mother insect. I haven't mentioned this before because I wanted to wait until there were real results. Xiao Yi took a deep breath. Now, the star sky beetles have been completely eradicated, and the threat to humanity has been completely eliminated. Now is the time for me to speak up. Noticing that Jin Hongyi still looked skeptical, Xiao Yi said, Let me tell you about the content of this painting. The first section depicts the outbreak of star sky beetles, and we built a vast iron wall for defense. The second section shows me holding the head of the star sky beetle mother insect, with all the star sky beetles dead. Both of these sections have already been realized. What about the third section? Jin Hongyi asked. Xiao Yi nodded. The third section is about me going to the Mayan ruins, which is what I need to do next. That's why I want to take you with me. No, Xiao Yi, you can't go. The Mayan ruins are too sinister. You can't die there, Qianlinson said. Others nodded in agreement. Xiao Yi slowly stood up and said, Don't you find it strange? Why is it only I who can receive this information? Why is it only I who can see the murals? Everyone fell silent. Qianlinson quietly remarked, The end of science is theology. All eyes turned to him. Qianlinson murmured, Our human power is too weak. Throughout history, there have been many things we have not understood. He continued, We all know that dinosaurs died long ago, even before humans appeared. But why do both Eastern and Western myths feature dragons, and describe them in ways that resemble dinosaurs? There are many similar things, as seen in both Eastern and Western histories. In the East, Nuwa created humans, while in the West, God created Adam and then made Eve from Adam's rib, leading to humanity. Were humans created in the image of God? Is this coincidence or inevitability? Human beings have existed on Earth for tens of thousands, even over 1 million years, yet the history we know is only a few thousand years. What did our ancestors go through? Moreover, throughout history, countless supernatural phenomena have occurred, yet they remain unexplained by science. I believe the recent events concerning the Maya ruins are also supernatural phenomena. As for supernatural occurrences, Xiao Yi, as the commander of humanity. You should not get involved, said Qianlin. Senator Xiao Yi shook his head slightly. My mission has ended. I am just an ordinary person now. No longer a significant figure. Yi Wanqing disagreed. That won't do. We still need your leadership to help other human civilizations fight back. Xiao Yi chuckled softly. Fight back against whom? Against extraterrestrial civilizations? Where are these extraterrestrial civilizations? Yi Wanqing was momentarily stunned. For a long time, everyone had treated extraterrestrial civilizations as hypothetical enemies. Even these vile creatures were named stellar armored beasts. But suddenly, the hypothetical enemy seemed to vanish. Without extraterrestrial civilizations, without invasions from alien colonies, and with the stellar armored beasts being earthly creatures controlled by supernatural forces, it was very likely that the so-called parallel universes didn't exist either. Xiao Yi shook his head. I am beginning to doubt whether parallel universes truly exist. If they don't, then who sent you the messages? Yi Wanqing asked. And who did we pass the messages to? Xiao Yi replied. The existence of parallel universes was all information my mind provided. Who can verify whether this information is true or false? Has anyone received messages from parallel universes? Out of the 7 to 8 billion people in the world, why did it only come to me? Xiao Yi stood up. Just like the Maya civilization murals we saw this time, you all cannot see them. Only I can. I suspect that the creators of the Maya murals and the information in my mind come from the same source. He sighed. Where did the stellar armored beasts come from? And why did they suddenly appear, wiping out most civilizations in the world, leaving only the great Zhou civilization, before perishing themselves? To unravel this mystery, I must visit the Maya ruins to see what force is manipulating all of this. Qianlin Sun also stood up and walked over to Xiao Yi, saying, Xiao Yi, I don't oppose your visit. However, we must have a clear purpose and be well prepared. What kind of preparation? Xiao Yi asked. Qianlin Sun pressed Xiao Yi back into his seat and returned to his position, saying, I feel there must be a reason behind these 4 cycles of civilization change. Moreover, the tools of destruction in these 4 civilizations share a characteristic. They precisely destroy a civilization. If this time it weren't the stellar armored beasts but a great flood, a plague, or a severe drought, these would not shake modern civilization. The stellar armored beasts do not seem particularly powerful, yet they are just capable of destroying Western civilization while preserving Eastern Great Zhou civilization. Clearly, their goal is not to exterminate humanity, but to eliminate Western civilization while preserving Eastern Great Zhou civilization. The starry armored beast is indeed the best tool. Everything seems like a meticulously designed chess game. Hidden within it must be the reasons for the destruction of these civilizations. Surely, these civilizations must have touched its reverse scales, leading to their demise. By the way, I suspect that this recent catastrophe was also caused by this entity. According to the initial assumptions, the catastrophe would destroy Western civilization due to the unity of Eastern civilizations and the internal divisions within Western civilization. However, the outcome did not lead to an immediate replacement of civilization. Thus, the starry armored beast emerged as this defiant existence. If Western civilization manages to survive this time, there might be further strikes ahead. Clearly, Western civilization is similar to the previously destroyed civilizations. Something must have provoked it, inciting a desire for destruction. As for the reasons behind the first 3 destructions, we cannot trace them anymore due to the passage of time and lack of evidence. However, we can find the cause of this civilization's transition. What exactly triggered this godlike existence to unleash the starry armored beast and obliterate the entire Western civilization? Moreover, if our Eastern civilization also provokes its reverse scales, will it also lead to our destruction? Only by identifying this reason can we secure our position. That will be the best time for you to visit the Maya ruins, Qianlin Sun said. Xiao Yi pondered deeply, and others were also reflecting. Qianlin Sun's point was indeed thought-provoking. There is no love or hatred without reason in this world. The destruction and replacement of 4 civilizations must have a cause. Finding the cause would lead to the possibility of the Daizhou civilization enduring through generations. Otherwise, in a few hundred years, another catastrophe could replace the Daizhou civilization with a new one. This is something no one wishes to see, especially the people of Daizhou. What you said is quite interesting. First came the catastrophe, and the new virus did not destroy Western civilization. Then the starry armored beast appeared, which suggests a relentless pursuit of Western civilization's destruction. Jin Hongyi realized, to understand the specific reasons, I share the same thought as Commander Xiao, which is to make another trip to the Maya ruins. You cannot catch a tiger cub without entering the tiger's den, especially for Commander Xiao, who should definitely go. Considering the prophetic murals depict him visiting the Maya temple, Jin Hongyi stated. Yi Wanqing shot Jin Hongyi a glare, and Qianlin Sun also stared at him, clearly believing that Jin Hongyi's words did not fit the current situation. Xiao Yi waved his hand to stop any potential argument and said, let us disperse for now. Everyone should go back and think carefully about what recent actions Western countries have taken that might have provoked this hidden force, compelling it to find ways to destroy Western civilization. Xiao Yi contemplated for a long time, but finally gave up. Over the years, too many events have occurred, and finding a single event among them that could have triggered the hidden force is highly uncertain. First, there is Elon's Mars colonization plan, then the resumption of space activities by a certain country, and the Mars probe landing on Mars for exploration. These are matters related to space studies. However, these plans are also being carried out by a certain nation. If this civilization were to replace Western civilization, then it would clearly not last long. This does not align with the established patterns. As for breakthroughs in other disciplines, there are many, but this nation is also following up on many of those projects. If these research areas lead to catastrophic disasters, then this nation must remain vigilant. In the end, the protagonist gave up thinking. There were no clues. The only way to unravel the mystery was to delve into the ancient ruins and enter that mysterious cave to see what discoveries awaited inside. Moreover, it would only be effective if he went personally. The information in his mind might have been transmitted by the unseen hand, and this information was relayed to him through another individual. Therefore, only by going personally could he truly comprehend. Chapter 4003, A Cruel Duel, A Childish Attitude. A month later, he landed at the repaired airport and then switched to an off-road vehicle to reach the ancient ruins. Everything here was shrouded in mystery. Although this civilization was relatively backward in many aspects, its achievements in astronomy far surpassed those of its contemporaries. This added to the enigmatic aura surrounding it. To this day, humanity has not fully understood the essence of this civilization. Everything remained unchanged. The individual looked around and confirmed. He quickly spotted the cave entrance at the very top of the ruins. "This is it," he said. "Be careful. The things here are indeed a bit uncanny." The other individual warned. He nodded and walked straight to the cave entrance. The other person entered first, saying, "Not far below, there's a space covered with murals. However, I can't recall the content of those murals at all right now." Suddenly, he stopped, feeling a sense of familiarity, as if he had been here before. He bypassed the other individual and moved ahead. "Wait for me. Don't rush in. Once you enter, all electronic devices will become ineffective," the other individual urged. But he seemed not to hear and stepped into what was clearly an artificially carved space, turning a corner to go inside. The other individual hurried to follow. But when he turned the corner, he was shocked to find that he had lost sight of him. There was no space ahead, just a dead end. The cave ended there. As for him, the other individual had no idea where he had gone. "Where are you? Where are you?" he called out, panicking as sweat broke out. This was truly bizarre. In broad daylight, he had inexplicably vanished. Moreover, the space that had murals had also disappeared. All that remained were 4 stone walls, bare and empty. The others who had followed in were stunned. They had actually lost their commander. Some anxiously began to dig at the walls, hoping to uncover any hidden entrances. However, a lot of effort was wasted, and there were no gains at all. This is a natural cave entrance, surrounded by natural stones. There are no hidden openings, no mechanisms. Xiao Yi just disappeared like that. Jin Hongyi trembled as he dialed Qian Linsen's phone, stuttering. "Commander Xiao is missing." But Xiao Yi felt nothing. He walked straight into a man-made cave, where the walls were covered with many murals, exactly like the ones he had seen before. In the last part of the mural, it depicted a human leader entering the Mayan ruins, with a holy light above his head. Now, this human leader, Xiao Yi, had arrived. But what was the holy light? "You finally arrived," a voice echoed. Xiao Yi turned around and saw a person standing behind him, looking exactly like him. Xiao Yi was not surprised, as this feeling was very familiar. "Why do you look just like me?" the person across from him said. "You perceive me as you see fit." Xiao Yi shifted his thoughts, and the person across from him changed to Qian Linsen. "This is much better. It doesn't feel strange anymore." Xiao Yi paused and asked, "I have many questions for you. First, who are you?" Qian Linsen waved his hand, and 2 armchairs appeared on the ground. He sat down first. "I will only answer 3 of your questions, so think carefully before you ask." Xiao Yi silently sat down, beginning to ponder. He had too many questions, and figuring out the 3 he wanted to ask was not easy. Qian Linsen was not in a hurry. He quietly waited like a mountain. Finally, Xiao Yi spoke again. "Who are you? Are you sure you want to waste such a precious opportunity to ask who I am? And the answer might disappoint you." Qian Linsen said with a strange smile. Xiao Yi slowly nodded. "Who are you?" Qian Linsen smiled. "Let's just say I am a god." Xiao Yi lowered his head and said nothing. Qian Linsen asked proudly, disappointed? But Xiao Yi continued to ask, "Why do you want to destroy Western civilization and Mayan civilization?" Qian Linsen paused for a moment before saying, "Your question is very good. To explain this clearly, I must reveal enough information to you. All known civilizations have only existed for a few thousand years, but humanity has existed for a very long time. Did they not create more civilizations? Has there only been these civilizations in human history? The earliest records of humanity date back tens of thousands of years, yet there are no existing records. Did earlier humans never create civilizations? Seeing Xiao Yi speechless, Qian Linson continued. It's simple. Over 1,000,000 years of history, countless civilizations must have appeared. They were just all eliminated. Xiao Yi's heart stirred. My last question is, what should our Zhou civilization do to avoid being eliminated? Qian Linson glanced at Xiao Yi with appreciation. Good. Your question is very clever. You can almost get any answer you seek. If you want to avoid being eliminated, it depends on whether your civilization can keep up. In the course of 5,000 years, your civilization has done well and has been striving to catch up. However, the next solar era is approaching, and if your civilization cannot make a breakthrough, it too will face elimination. Xiao Yi looked at Qian Linson with a puzzled expression. You still haven't answered how we should proceed? Qian Linson smiled. Don't rush. What to do actually depends on you. The world you are in is a parallel world, but it is not the mainstream world. Rather, it is a subsidiary world. This subsidiary world is just one of the 3,000 such worlds outside the true world. If you cannot break through the limitations of this subsidiary world and truly integrate into the mainstream world, then your civilization will also disappear, replaced by the next civilization that might achieve a breakthrough. As for how to break through, it depends on how you respond. As the commander of humanity, you need to lead your civilization forward. Whether the direction is eternal life or destruction rests entirely on your decision. I will allow you to enter the mainstream world, where you will travel for 20 years as a traveler. Upon your return, your actions will determine the fate of your civilization. Seeing Xiao Yi's confused expression, Qian Linson smiled. Yes, the leaders of other civilizations have been here before. After returning from the mainstream world, they chose to end their lives, as they only saw endless destruction and despair. They could not bear the pressure of witnessing the extinction of their entire civilization. Before these individuals took their lives, they left behind a prophecy, which, when combined, forms the Mayan prophecy. I hope that when you return, you will leave the world not with a pessimistic prophecy of extinction, but with a prophecy of eternal life for civilization. After finishing, Qian Linson stood up. Come on, I will send you to the mainstream world. He extended his hand. Xiao Yi slowly got up, hesitated for a moment, and said, I have one last request. Qian Linson looked at Xiao Yi with curiosity and said, You can speak, but I may not fulfill it. However, this did not deter Xiao Yi's thoughts. Can you show me your true form? Qian Linson was momentarily taken aback, then suddenly burst out laughing. So that's your request. You young man are quite interesting. He turned to face Xiao Yi directly and said seriously, All right, but I hope you won't be scared. As soon as he finished speaking, Qian Linson's appearance changed, becoming something that resembled neither human nor beast. He had a human face, but a beastly physique. The features on his human face bore animal characteristics, and the beastly body had human traits. It looked strange, but the combination was just right. This is the divine, and this is me. Go ahead, you have 20 years to study the mainstream world. With that, the divine being pushed Xiao Yi gently, and he felt everything around him suddenly vanish, with only a voice calling out, See you in 20 years. Xiao Yi abruptly opened his eyes, finding himself lying in bed, with familiar market sounds coming from outside. He lifted his head and found everything around him very familiar. It was indeed his room from a year ago. He opened the wardrobe, and those familiar yet somewhat strange clothes hung inside. A pile of books was on the table, exactly the biology textbooks he had been studying. Pushing open the window, he heard the familiar sound of vendors calling out, specifically the shouts of a bun seller that used to be quite common. A girl hurriedly walked by, and it was none other than Chu Xiao, whom he had once desperately pursued. Looking at the calendar, he realized it was the current date. This indicated that he hadn't traveled through time, but was instead in another universe, continuing to live on. There were no celestial beasts, no apocalyptic events. The world had simply moved forward a year. However, Xiao Yi felt that something had changed, something unfamiliar to him. Stepping out of the familiar alley, the bun seller spotted Xiao Yi and shouted, Do you want buns? Same old deal, buy 5 and get a soy milk for free. But Xiao Yi didn't hear him at all. His attention was captivated by a scene ahead. The bun seller followed Xiao Yi's gaze and quickly withdrew his own. What is so interesting? It's just a lucky creature you can ride, not some precious mythical beast. It was then that Xiao Yi realized he had truly entered an unfamiliar world. In the sky ahead, a man in a robe was riding a bright red-crested ibis, gliding slowly through the air. Even further away, a stranger caught his eye. A person with mechanical wings was flapping them, causing nearby leaves to fall. This person flew over Xiao Yi's head, heading toward a factory belching thick smoke in the distance. Damn turtle, can't you move faster? A teenager called out, frequently glancing back at a turtle crawling on the ground. The turtle displayed a look of grievance and quickened its pace, trying to keep up with its 4 short legs. Xiao Yi was stunned. A turtle could express emotions and understand human speech? What era was this? What world was he in? Was this the mainstream world? A mythical world? A mechanical world? Or a world of divine pets? After taking a few more steps, Xiao Yi was shocked again by what he saw. A sphinx-like creature stood by the roadside, haggling with a vendor at a small stall. Noticing Xiao Yi staring at it intently, it put on a fierce expression. "What are you looking at?" Xiao Yi, almost unconsciously, retorted, "What is it to you?" The sphinx-like creature backed down. "I can't be bothered with you." It pulled out some money from its pocket, handed it to the vendor, took a large piece of meat, threw it over its shoulder, and walked away, seemingly quite afraid of Xiao Yi. "Damn it, this world is really bizarre," Xiao Yi murmured. He soon spotted Chu Xiao. She was frowning in a small shop, staring at a very extravagant piece of clothing, reluctant to leave. Her hand fumbled in her pocket. But she never took out any money, clearly wanting the dress but unable to part with her cash. Although he did not want to talk to Chu Xiao, he found himself alone in this world without knowing anyone. Chu Xiao was the first familiar face he encountered, so he approached her and said, "Hi, Xiao." Chu Xiao turned her face away, looking at Xiao Yi with disgust. "Don't try to get close to me. I don't know you, and I'm not interested in getting to know you." At this point, it seemed that Xiao Yi's presence gave her determination. She gritted her teeth, took out all her money, and handed it to the owner. "I'll buy it." Xiao Yi shook his head, realizing that Chu Xiao truly did not recognize him. It appeared that although there were people he had seen in another world, they had no connection with him here. "Xiao Yi, why aren't you at work yet? You can't keep dragging your feet if you want to get promoted." A man's voice came, forcing Xiao Yi to turn around. He was surprised to see his father. This world's father looked much more imposing than the one from his original world. Suddenly, a flood of information surged into Xiao Yi's mind, just like last time, almost overwhelming him and causing a splitting headache. He crouched down, holding his head, and it took a while for him to gradually calm down. He felt that his brain had been filled with new content, but it was not comprehensive. It lacked an understanding of this world and only contained basic information, such as the workplace and some acquaintances. It seemed that when the divine being infused information into his brain, it did not transfer the original owner's established impressions of this world. Everything needed to be explored by himself. He had 20 years to study this world thoroughly. Only then could he understand where to lead humanity. "I'm going right away." Xiao Yi hurried out of the shop, skillfully found his bicycle by the wall, and rode it towards his workplace. Since he needed to explore this world, he had to abide by its rules. Therefore, the first thing to do was to ride his bike to work. The research institute was still located within the University of Chudu, just like before. As he entered the university, he immediately noticed a group of people gathered ahead, surrounding his workplace. They were engaged in a heated argument. Xiao Yi squeezed in for a look and found that his friend Lin Dashan was in a dispute with someone. "Stop arguing. Let us settle this with a match." "In this world, strength is everything," someone from the crowd shouted. "Yeah, a competition. A competition." The crowd began to cheer. A security guard rushed over, blew his whistle, and the crowd quieted down. "Is there a competition happening?" the guard asked. Lin Dashan looked conflicted, but his opponent boldly declared, "I demand a match." Lin Dashan gritted his teeth. "Fine, let us compete." The security guard suddenly became energized, quickly dispersing the crowd and clearing out an area. He transformed into a referee, revealing that security personnel in this world could have such a side job. Xiao Yi squeezed to the front row and immediately caught Lin Dashan's eye. Lin hurried over and said, "Xiao Yi, if I can't win, you have to help me, okay? Did you bring any painkillers?" "No." Xiao Yi shook his head. Lin Dashan urged, "Hurry up and go get some." As a low-level individual from a technological civilization, I'm likely no match for this guy. Their genetic civilization gives them higher attributes right from birth. "Then don't fight," Xiao Yi replied dismissively. Lin Dashan, terrified, almost covered Xiao Yi's mouth. "Are you crazy? If I refuse to fight, those fanatics from the technological civilization will tear me apart. Don't worry, it's just a spar, no one will die." He pushed Xiao Yi again. "Hurry and buy the painkillers." "Do you want me to suffer?" Confused, Xiao Yi ran towards the school infirmary. A bottle of painkillers cost nearly all his money. By the time Xiao Yi returned to the competition area, the sparring had already begun. Lin Dashan was equipped with a partial exoskeleton on his right arm, which had two types of weapons, an automatic rifle and a lightweight grenade launcher. Xiao Yi, familiar with weapons, recognized the automatic rifle as a standard Alaska and the grenade launcher as a single-shot semi-automatic model. In his left hand, Lin held a shield made of an unknown, lightweight material. His opponent was bare-chested, showcasing well-defined muscles, with elongated nails and slightly glistening skin, looking very sturdy. "Begin." The security guard waved his hand and stepped back, his eyes fixed on the two fighters, clearly anxious and not daring to be careless. Lin Dashan suddenly opened fire, unleashing a whole magazine of bullets at his opponent. Xiao Yi was alarmed. The area surrounding their spar was packed with spectators. Those bullets could endanger their lives. However, he soon realized he was overthinking it. Once the bullets flew outside the sparring area, they instantly lost their momentum, falling harmlessly to the ground like stones thrown by children. A few quick-witted spectators even caught some bullets mid-air and tossed them aside. Xiao Yi couldn't understand the principle behind this phenomenon and had no time to dwell on it. He saw that Lin Dashan's opponent was incredibly fast, dodging most of the bullets with several quick movements. A few bullets hit him, drawing blood, but he seemed unfazed. Seizing the opportunity while Lin Dashan was reloading, the opponent charged forward, fingers like knives, striking at Lin with a sharp whistle. Lin Dashan rolled to the side and raised his shield to block, but this delayed his reloading process. Lin Dashan's opponent possessed immense strength. At a glance, his fingernails hadn't harmed Lin Dashan, so he switched to a power-based fighting style. The muscles on his body visibly bulked up again, and his fists grew to the size of a large bowl, striking Lin Dashan's abdomen with force. Although Lin Dashan had armor on his stomach, it clearly caved in upon impact. He staggered backward, and at that moment, his opponent appeared behind him like a ghost, a fingernail slashing toward Lin Dashan's arm. Lin Dashan didn't react in time, and in an instant, his arm fell to the ground, along with his shield, making a loud, clanging sound. "Ah!" Xiao Yi exclaimed in surprise. Just like that, Lin Dashan lost his arm, which left Xiao Yi feeling utterly shocked. However, others didn't react as strongly. They began to applaud. Clearly, the applause was directed at Lin Dashan's opponent. The security announced, "The match is over, and the winner is this one." The security raised the opponent's hand. With a broad smile, the opponent squatted down and patted Lin Dashan's shoulder, as if they had just participated in a friendly match. Arguments and fights were merely part of the competition. Xiao Yi rushed to Lin Dashan's side, anxiously asking, "How are you? Should I call an ambulance?" Lin Dashan, sweating profusely and clearly in pain, waved his hand. "Don't call an ambulance. It's too expensive. Do we have any painkillers?" Xiao Yi quickly pulled out some painkillers and handed them over. After swallowing a handful of painkillers, Lin Dashan's complexion quickly returned to normal. He took out a tourniquet, bit down on it, and swiftly tied it around his bleeding arm. Xiao Yi, feeling somewhat helpless, picked up the severed arm. Although he was accustomed to life and death, holding a bloody severed arm at that moment felt uncomfortable. What should I do with this arm? Xiao Yi thought, feeling completely lost in this situation. It seemed Lin Dashan wasn't particularly concerned about his arm or whether he would be disabled. "Forget it, I don't need it. The money for the arm would be better spent on a mechanical one." Lin Dashan suddenly grinned. "I've always wanted to be a robot. Now I can finally realize my dream." Lin Dashan stood up and gestured to Xiao Yi. "You go to work, I'll go get a mechanical arm." Watching Lin Dashan leave, Xiao Yi felt a wave of confusion. By the time he came to his senses, Lin Dashan was already far away, and the onlookers had dispersed. Only the gruesome sight of the severed arm remained, reminding Xiao Yi that a fierce battle had just taken place, and his friend Lin Dashan had lost an arm. However, it seemed no one cared about it. The opponent didn't care, the referee didn't care, the crowd didn't care, and even Lin Dashan himself didn't seem to care. This world is really crazy. A dog ran over, picked up the severed arm, and ran away, leaving Xiao Yi in a state of bewilderment. When Xiao Yi saw Lin Dashan again, he had changed into a fresh set of clothes and walked in with no sign of pain on his face. "Are you okay?" Xiao Yi stared at his arm, nervously asking. Lin Dashan shrugged. "What a pity." Xiao Yi also felt it was a shame. A whole arm, just like that, rendered useless. However, Lin Dashan's next words nearly made Xiao Yi faint. "The shirt I just bought had its sleeves cut off. Sigh. Wasted me hundreds." It seemed that, compared to a few hundred worth of clothing, a severed arm was hardly worth mentioning. "Your hand?" Xiao Yi asked. Lin Dashan showed a hint of embarrassment. "Don't mention it. We're all poor. We can't afford a good arm. My domestic model cost me several tens of thousands. The down payment was 10,000. And I need to pay 2,000 each month. Xiao Yi, I might have to rely on you for meals more in the coming months." Xiao Yi was stunned. Lin Dashan extended his arm, and with a swish, a screwdriver appeared at his fingertip. But this is the top configuration. Fully functional, can be used for anything. Lin Dashan suddenly lowered his voice, speaking somewhat lewdly. "It even has an automatic vibration massage function, if you know what I mean. The best part is that it can be powered by new energy, driven by spirit stones." Lin Dashan raised his arm with joy, making Xiao Yi truly understand what it meant to be unable to part with something. Spirit stones? Xiao Yi was completely dumbfounded. Chapter 4004. Four Great Civilizations. Lin Dashan felt that Xiao Yi seemed to distrust him. "Don't believe me?" His arm opened up, revealing a compartment, like a hatch door, which opened to show a cylindrical stone that looked like a battery. "Look, what else could this be if not a spirit stone? However, we don't have money, so it's just an ordinary spirit stone. If we had a high-grade spirit stone, this arm could last a month without needing a replacement." Xiao Yi felt like Lu Lao Lao entering the Grand View Garden, completely a clueless country bumpkin. He realized he knew nothing about this world. It turned out that the so-called new energy was not electrical energy, wind energy, or nuclear energy, but spirit stones, spirit energy. This world had given Xiao Yi too much shock. He began to understand the reason why the divine had brought him to this real world. Humanity's technology had gone astray. Human technology was more oriented towards the mysterious universe and the unpredictable microquantum field. It hadn't transformed technology into stronger combat power, nor had it connected with these magical things. What are you all chatting about? Get to work. We must produce research results today, understood? A stern voice came, and Xiaoyi recognized it as the laboratory director's voice. However, it sounded a bit strange, like an electronic synthesized voice. Lindashan, is that our director's voice? Xiaoyi asked. Lindashan quickly replied, lower your voice. The director's voice sensor has some issues, but the 4S shop hasn't delivered the replacement yet, so we have to make do for now. Xiaoyi was shocked, but didn't voice it. He secretly glanced at the director and found that the director had become younger and more handsome. The original director was in his 50s, with a receding hairline and overweight. But now, although he retained the basic features of the original director, there was a sense of difference. He looked to be in his 30s or 40s, with thick hair and a face that seemed to have undergone a 10-level beauty enhancement. This director might be a robot, but a robotic body. Xiaoyi, what are you daydreaming about? If you want to succeed and have a body like mine, you need to work hard. Otherwise, just the maintenance costs for my body amount to hundreds of thousands a year. How are you going to afford that? The director walked over and said contemptuously. Only then did Xiaoyi confirm that the director indeed had a robotic body. However, although the director's body was mechanical, Xiaoyi could feel that the director's mind was still his own. Just as sharp-tongued and bitter, treating subordinates with no compassion, only exploiting them relentlessly. Suddenly, a colorful bird flew by, heading towards the direction of the research institute behind them. The director cursed loudly. Damn it, I can't stand these rich people. They completely disregard us at Chudu University. They just fly in here on their auspicious creatures. These beings from the spiritual civilization are the most annoying. Xiaoyi couldn't help but ask quietly, Lindashan, how many civilizations exist in our world? Lindashan chuckled. You little rascal, trying to set me up again, right? If I say there are 4 civilizations, you'll definitely bring up some hidden civilizations to hit me with. Hehe. My answer is that there are only 4 foundational civilizations: technological civilization, genetic civilization, spiritual civilization, and elemental civilization. As for other hidden civilizations, no one can figure out how many there are. Xiaoyi got the answer he wanted. It turned out that these classifications of civilizations were based on their sources of power. Technology is the driving force of the Great Zhou civilization. People often say that technology is the primary productive force. Humanity has progressed to where it is today, relying on technology. This is also the foundation of technological civilization. As for genetic civilization, it should be driven by the transformation of living beings themselves, primarily enhancing themselves or other animals, similar to the starry armored beasts. Spiritual civilization surely relies on spiritual energy and stones as their power sources, including techniques of Taoism and immortality. As for elemental civilization, Xiaoyi could also guess a bit, which is the Western magic type, relying on elemental energy as its power. Xiaoyi basically understood why those past civilizations had declined. They had truly gone astray. Ancient Egypt should have followed the path of elemental civilization, but they did not develop and were destroyed by the Western civilization that took the same route. The Maya civilization should have pursued technological civilization, but they also went off course, focusing on cosmology, which led to their elimination by Western civilization. The Western civilization abandoned the inheritance of elemental civilization and focused on technological civilization, resulting in their path toward space exploration, which led to them being outpaced by the Great Zhou civilization that emphasized practicality. So, the dilemma facing the Great Zhou civilization is whether to pursue the path of technological civilization or the path of spiritual civilization. Should there be a revival of spiritual energy, with everyone practicing immortality? Or should they continue to uphold the current technological civilization, focusing on their own strength rather than researching the almost metaphysical fields of cosmic science and quantum science? Xiaoyi, what are you thinking about? Hurry to the research institute behind and bring me the latest materials on psychic energy and mechanical applications, the director said. Xiaoyi agreed and turned to run towards the research institute. On this day, an overwhelming amount of information flooded Xiaoyi's mind, keeping it in a state of extreme excitement. When he returned home, he turned on the television and was soon captivated by a scrolling headline: Emergency Recruitment Order from the Summer Nation. As various tribes invade our human race in large numbers, the Summer Nation calls upon young patriots to dedicate themselves to serving the country, to contribute their youth in the fight against foreign invasions, and to protect their homeland. Registration phone number XXXXXXXXXXX. Xiaoyi's heart stirred. He realized that to understand this world better, going to the front lines was the best path. Only then could he find a path for the people of the Great Zhou nation towards civilized development, a path that would not lead to destruction. He picked up the phone and dialed. 3 days later, Xiaoyi donned military gear and a red flower, beginning his military career amidst the sound of drums and gongs. I'm Daniel, what is your name? A burly man said to Xiaoyi with a grin. Xiaoyi rubbed his nose, feeling somewhat helpless, and replied, Xiaoyi. Although it was just two simple words, it was enough to spark the man's desire to chat. I heard we're heading to the front lines this time. Do you think we'll be in danger? Will we die on the battlefield? Dainyu was big, but clearly not very bright, and he lacked courage as well. Xiaoyi frowned. He had already experienced the harshest wars and was no longer afraid of battlefield threats. It'll be fine. As long as you are bold and attentive, nothing will happen. Dainyu was clearly aware of his own limitations. Dainyu, may be big, but I'm usually timid. Xiaoyi didn't want to continue the conversation with him. As the human commander, he really didn't want to get entangled with someone so simple-minded. It'll be fine. Just treat the enemy as your sworn enemy. And you won't be afraid. My father is still alive. Then treat them as your mother's enemy. My mother is alive too. Then treat them as your sister's enemy. My sister is doing just fine. Then just think of the enemy as someone you dislike the most. Oh, then I'll just think of them as my sister's husband. Dainyu said. Xiaoyi nearly fell over. It seemed his sister had made a poor choice in marriage. Otherwise, why would her husband be the person he disliked the most? This method works well. Just thinking of those tribes as my sister's husband makes me fearless and makes me want to fight, Dainyu said cheerfully. However, Xiaoyi felt quite uncomfortable hearing this, as it seemed more like an insult to his sister than to her husband. Amidst the crowd that had gathered to send them off, the vehicle finally arrived at the military camp. Xiaoyi immediately felt a surge of excitement because he was assigned a set of mecha. This mecha operated almost identically to the ones in his own world, but the equipment and weapons were different. This mecha was more advanced, and the weapon distribution was more reasonable. This was actually quite normal. The original mechas primarily faced the starry armored beasts, which were relatively simple creatures with underdeveloped minds, relying mainly on their strong forelimbs and thick shells to fight. Therefore, only grenade launchers and heavy machine guns were needed as weapons. The original mechas were heavily agile but lightly armored. Against the strong forelimbs of the starry armored beasts, heavy armor was of little use and could actually hinder flexibility. However, the battles here are different. They require defense. While agility is important, defense is even more crucial. After all, the enemies they face are intelligent beings from other civilizations, not low-intelligence creatures like the starry armored beasts. Today, everyone will be assessed on their combat capabilities and then grouped according to their individual situations. The instructor shouted loudly during the assembly, Now, everyone, put on your mechas and enter the simulation combat room for simulated combat. Xiaoyi stood in the middle of a row of mecha warriors, walking towards the simulation combat room. He noticed that not everyone in this world was familiar with mechas. At least half of them had probably never worn one before. This was evident from how they wore their mechas. For example, one individual, Dainyu, hadn't even fastened the straps or connected the stabilizers properly. Upon entering the simulation combat room, the instructor announced loudly, Now, divide into small teams of 10 people each based on your current formation. Then, choose a team leader and begin your simulated combat. Xiaoyi glanced at the few people in his team and frowned. There were 10 people in total, but 8 of them were clearly unfamiliar with mechas. While only one person was properly equipped, others also noticed that among them, only Xiao Yi and a guy named Lu Xing wore their mechas correctly. They were clearly the best candidates for team leader. Several people who seemed to know Lu Xing began to nominate him, and no one opposed it. Just as Lu Xing was about to take the lead, Xiao Yi suddenly asked, What does our performance matter? Lu Xing replied, It matters a lot. If we perform well, our meal standards will be higher, there will be more training subjects, and the instructor will be better. Ultimately, we will be assigned to better combat teams. Xiao Yi hadn't expected that a simulated examination could be so important. Seeing that Xiao Yi still looked confused, another man chimed in. Yes, I know. I have a cousin who joined the military last year. When he took the simulated exam, he didn't do well, and as a result, he ended up in the worst ground assault team. It was terrible. After a year, he had both legs severely injured. The compensation wasn't enough to buy good mechanical legs. So now he drags around 2 useless mechanical legs and can only work as a doorman, unable to do anything else. Xiao Yi asked in confusion, Why is that? Aren't we here to train? If we are going to train, shouldn't it be the same for everyone? The man immediately replied, Don't you know? In every world, people are divided into different classes. The children of the wealthy have trained with mechas since childhood and are skilled in operating them. While those from poor families can't even afford a mechanical arm, how can they train? The levels are inherently different. So how could the training be on the same subject? Of course, those with higher levels will have higher standards in their training. Conversely, those with lower levels will have lower standards. Naturally, those who are highly trained will be assigned to high-level teams. Isn't that quite normal? This man named Ma San is clearly very talkative and seems to be a jack of all trades. Xiao Yi suddenly realized this and said, Since that's the case, I won't pretend anymore. My level is definitely the highest, so I'll be the captain to help everyone reach a higher level team. Lu Xing raised his chin, clearly unconvinced. Your level is high? How long have you trained? What rank are you? Xiao Yi wasn't aware of the ranks among mecha warriors. He thought for a moment and replied, I'm at the Glory King rank. What about you? This was his rank from his own world. But he wasn't sure if the ranks were the same in this world. The group was momentarily stunned before bursting into laughter. Lu Xing pointed at Xiao Yi, laughing, You're a Glory King? Haha, who would have thought there was such a top-level talent hiding here among us? The others joined in with even louder laughter, clearly treating Xiao Yi's words as a hilarious joke. Xiao Yi shrugged and said to Lu Xing, How about you show me the most difficult move and see if I can complete it? Lu Xing stopped laughing, glanced at Xiao Yi, and nodded. All right, I'll show you a move. If you can do it, I'll let you be the captain. Deal, Xiao Yi replied readily. He was quite confident in his mecha operation skills. Although he knew nothing about this world, he was confident in his abilities. Having reached this level through hard practice and the memories he already had, Lu Xing moved to the center, cast a sideways glance at Xiao Yi, and smirked. Watch closely and don't blink, or you won't know what my move looks like. After saying that, Lu Xing took a running start, exerted force with his feet, and performed a 360-degree flip in midair, extending both arms, each holding a gun. The left hand held a rifle, while the right hand held a shotgun, one for precise shooting and the other for area damage. The left rifle hit the bullseye directly, while the right shotgun turned the target into a sieve. Great! The team members couldn't help but cheer and applaud loudly. Lu Xing's performance was indeed impressive, with precise shooting and fluid movements. Xiao Yi couldn't help but clap as well. This level of skill, in his world, would at least be considered a diamond rank. My rank is gold, so I guess it can't compare to your Glory King rank, right? Lu Xing said arrogantly, his tone filled with pride and disdain. The others looked at Xiao Yi with mocking expressions, clearly believing that he could never perform better than Lu Xing. Xiao Yi loosened up a bit, adjusted his aim, then smiled and said, Let's see then. After saying that, Xiao Yi did not take a running start. Instead, he jumped directly from his spot, performing a 360-degree flip in the air. With both arms stretched out, he aimed steadily at the target and then pulled the trigger. The sound of gunfire echoed as his left hand hit the bullseye, while the right hand's shotgun blast also scored perfectly. Although his results seemed on par with Lu Xing's, those with expertise could tell that Lu Xing's movements were somewhat forced and tense. In contrast, Xiao Yi's actions were graceful and fluid, clearly demonstrating a higher level of skill. Xiao Yi's performance caught the instructor's attention, whose eyes lit up as if he had discovered a treasure. Good. Lu Xing couldn't help but clap his hands. While onlookers were merely entertained, the knowledgeable ones could see the nuances in Xiao Yi's movements, recognizing that his level of proficiency far surpassed Lu Xing's. This captain role is yours, Lu Xing said earnestly. In this world, things were quite simple. Strength represented everything. Those with superior abilities were the true experts, worthy of respect. The others quickly agreed. Xiao Yi, we all choose you as our captain. Xiao Yi nodded slightly and said, All right, since everyone trusts me, I will ensure we achieve a satisfactory outcome together. He then began organizing equipment for each team member, instructing them on how to wear the mechas while also sharing the operational essentials so they could familiarize themselves quickly. He established a basic WM formation, 3 assault units, 3 defensive covers, and 4 fire support units. Xiao Yi took the central defensive position, responsible for everyone's safety and coordination, while Lu Xing took the assault position in the middle, tasked with aggressive attacks. The others had their specific roles. This formation was the most commonly used in Xiao Yi's world, representing a well-balanced approach to offense and defense. The instructor observed the arrangement multiple times, now quite interested in Xiao Yi. As the time arrived, each group entered their respective simulation training rooms to prepare for battle. With the instructor's command, all teams began entering their simulation rooms. Curious, Xiao Yi stepped into one and wanted to see how such a training facility prepared warriors and what level of technological advancement this world had reached. As soon as he entered the simulation room, the lights suddenly went out. Just as Xiao Yi was about to ask something, a 3-dimensional countdown appeared above him. 10, 9, 8. Clearly, it was counting down. Xiao Yi was secretly shocked. The numbers seemed to hover directly above them. As the countdown ended, everyone found themselves in a vast wasteland. It's the psychic civilization. Lu Xing suddenly shouted, Everyone, be careful. Only then did Xiao Yi realize he had made a grave mistake. He was unaware of what the psychic civilization entailed or how their enemies would engage in battle. Be cautious of their artifacts and spells. As the vice captain and a key figure, Lu Xing responsibly provided reminders. Xiao Yi's mind stirred. He began to understand that the spiritual civilization was akin to spells and celestial arts, related to the ancient legends of a certain civilization. Against such a civilization, bullets could be quite effective. Sure enough, 10 figures resembling robed Taoists emerged from the opposing side. Some flew on swords, others rode mounts, while some walked on foot. Be careful of their formations, Lu Xing reminded again. Xiao Yi had a thought. Pay attention to their magical systems and adopt different defensive strategies. He realized that since his world was a companion world, anything that had appeared in his world must also exist in the mainstream world. Given that spells and mythological novels were categorized into 5 elemental types, there must also be a division of elemental spells here. He decided to voice his thoughts to see if he was correct. Indeed, no one found fault with Xiao Yi's statement, indicating that his conjecture was likely right. Thick earth formation, shouted a robed Taoist, and brown earthen walls appeared around them, enclosing them. In this spiritual civilization, long-range attacks were strong while close combat was weak. Therefore, they first fortified themselves with a defensive formation and then planned to exploit their advantage in long-range attacks. The best way to deal with such a thick earth formation was to launch a strong offensive. With this in mind, Xiao Yi shouted, the 4 in the middle, attack with rocket launchers. The 3 in the front, advance and break through. The 10-person team began to move towards the enemy. Since the strongest tactic of the spiritual civilization was long-range attacks, they needed to avoid the enemy's strengths and target their weaknesses, which is a fundamental principle of military strategy. A few rocket shells struck the thick earth formation, creating several cracks in the brown protective walls. Xiao Yi sensed an opportunity, raised his sniper rifle, and accurately aimed at the largest crack, pulling the trigger repeatedly. With a loud bang, the seemingly impenetrable thick earth formation was shattered. However, the enemy began to counterattack. A Taoist flying on a sword threw several talismans toward the mech squad. Lu Xing, who was leading the charge, hesitated for a moment, contemplating how to respond. He was not afraid of such attacks, but as the attack spearhead, the responsibility for defense should fall on those behind him. Still, he was not entirely confident in the defensive capabilities of Xiao Yi and the others. Suddenly, several gunshots rang out, lifting Lu Xing's spirits. He saw that. Just as he hesitated, Xiao Yi had swiftly fired several shots, accurately destroying the incoming talismans, which ignited instantly. Soul capture technique. One Taoist shouted loudly, shaking the morale of the team and leaving them momentarily dazed. Seizing this opportunity, another person set up a thick earth formation again, surrounding them once more. Flying sword technique. Within the formation, a man with disheveled hair launched a sword from behind him, swiftly flying towards Xiao Yi. They realized that Xiao Yi was likely the core figure of the team. Eliminating him would disrupt the entire squad. The soul-binding technique had limited effectiveness. In less than a second, Xiao Yi was startled awake and immediately saw the flying sword heading towards him. With a push of his feet, he leaped into the air and fired several shots with both hands. Each shot hit the flying sword, which seemed to sustain damage and buzzed before turning away. Lu Xing quickly freed himself from the constraints of the formation and rushed to the thick earth formation. He extended his mechanical arm and shouted, "Hammer strike." A shattering hammer emerged from his arm. Under the intense vibrations, the hammer easily shattered the second thick earth formation that had been conjured. Boom, boom. Taking advantage of the moment, Xiao Yi fired 2 shots, one killing the man who could use the thick earth formation, and the other taking down the Taoist who employed the soul-binding technique. The situation turned into a complete massacre. Various weapons rained down on the remaining 8 Taoists. 7 of them were turned into sieves, unable to fight back, while the last man suddenly grew enormous, wielding a giant axe. Bullets hitting him seemed utterly ineffective. His giant axe swept through, and while Lu Xing and Xiao Yi evaded with agile movements, others were not so fortunate, as the axe took down half of their team in one blow. The remaining 3 were severely injured and lost their fighting capability in an instant. The battlefield was merciless. Xiao Yi and Lu Xing exchanged a glance. Their thoughts synchronized as they split and ran to either side. The giant clearly targeted Xiao Yi, as his responses had led to the death of all his squad members. The giant swung his axe down heavily towards Xiao Yi. He tried to dodge, but no matter how he shifted his position, he couldn't evade the blow. It was evident that the axe had some hidden trick, specifically locking onto him for a reason. Xiao Yi shouted loudly, no longer attempting to evade. He exchanged a look with Lu Xing and assumed a defensive stance. His legs extended 2 auxiliary support arms, anchoring him to the ground. A shield made of a special material appeared in his hands, which he gripped to protect his head, bending his body into an arc to take the hit. With a loud crash, the giant axe came down viciously. It was unclear what material the shield was made of, but it managed to withstand the attack. Although the shield bent and cracked, it did not shatter. The auxiliary support arms beneath him all broke apart, and even the steel beams supporting his mech legs completely snapped, causing Xiao Yi's legs to emit 2 sharp cracks. His entire mech suit showed signs of cracking, clearly unable to continue fighting. The giant revealed a sinister smile at the corner of his mouth and was about to strike again, but his facial muscles twitched, and blood flowed from his mouth. His massive body suddenly shrank down to normal human size, and he knelt down before crashing to the ground with a thud. He was evidently dead. This was Lu Xing's opportunity for a stealthy, lethal strike from behind. With Xiao Yi's cover, Lu Xing's ambush was effortless. The recent battle, though brief, was incredibly intense and thrilling. The lights in the room turned on. The fallen warriors who had been lying on the ground awakened, and Xiao Yi realized that the intense pain he had felt moments before had vanished. His previously damaged exosuit was now intact. The simulation of this combat scenario was astonishingly realistic. The first level was completed. Now, they were entering the second level. There was a hint of admiration in the instructor's tone. Xiao Yi quickly gathered his spirits. Everyone, get ready to face the second wave of challenges. The surroundings dimmed again, and everyone adjusted their states, preparing for battle. After the previous fight, the group had developed great trust in the combat abilities of Lu Xing and Xiao Yi. The atmosphere among them was also uplifting. Once the countdown was over, the surroundings lit up. They found themselves in a desolate wilderness, and in the distance, the forest appeared to be stirring. Genetic civilization creatures, prepare for defense. Lu Xing shouted from the front. As he called out, a large group of creatures charged forward. At the forefront were towering giants resembling elephants, followed by wolves, tigers, leopards, and other beasts. Behind these animals were 10 humans dressed in barbaric attire, with exposed chests and wielding massive weapons. Round shield defense. Xiao Yi shouted loudly. 8 exosuit warriors retrieved their shields from their backs, forming a circular formation. Compared to the genetically modified creatures, close combat was no longer the strength of the exosuit warriors. Instead, ranged attacks were their advantage. Lu Xing and Xiao Yi were surrounded by the round shields, and they began to fire precise shots. These creatures were extremely agile. The moment they were targeted, they sensed danger and skillfully dodged the bullets. Xiao Yi tried several times and found that only by pulling the trigger the instant he aimed could he possibly take down these beasts. This required a very high level of exosuit operation. Even Lu Xing's accuracy had significantly decreased. However, for Xiao Yi, this was not much of a problem. He fired continuously with both hands. By the time these creatures launched their assault on the exosuit warriors, their numbers had already been reduced by half. However, the greatest threat came from the 10 genetic civilization warriors charging toward them. Xiao Yi squinted. He had noticed certain characteristics of these warriors. Some were exceptionally fast, even quicker than a cheetah. Some displayed immense strength, evident from the noise they made while running. And others had piercing gazes that sent chills down Xiao Yi's spine when they locked eyes with him. One of the throwers hurled a spear, which slipped through a small gap in the shield wall formed by the exosuit warriors, instantly killing one of them. A breach appeared in the circular defense. The powerful genetic civilization warrior charged through this gap, wielding a club. Xiao Yi raised his shield to block the attack from this warrior, while Lu Xing continued to fire, but with little effect. Xiao Yi noticed that the animals and the warriors were very sensitive to danger. The animals were somewhat manageable. As long as the aim was quick enough, they could be taken down. However, those genetically enhanced warriors were extremely sensitive to threats. Even before a target was locked, they could sense danger and would dodge in advance. Their weapons appeared primitive, but were deadly nonetheless. Lu Xing fired dozens of rounds without hitting a single target. The thrower launched another spear, forcing Lu Xing to crouch down to avoid it. As a result, the mech warriors lost their only point of firepower and were completely suppressed, left only to passively take hits. Xiao Yi shouted, "Lu Xing, cover my position." After that, he raised his heavy machine gun and unleashed a barrage of aimless fire overhead, pushing back the animals and warriors, giving him a chance to stand upright. He switched his weapon to a grenade launcher and shotgun, opting for a more indiscriminate attack style rather than precise aiming. This proved effective, catching the genetically enhanced warriors off guard. Several animals were killed, and the genetically civilized warriors were forced to retreat. However, one warrior charged forward with an iron plate, seemingly unafraid of Xiao Yi's gunfire. Xiao Yi noticed that the shotgun pellets hit the warrior's skin, leaving only white marks without causing any harm. This genetically enhanced warrior clearly had modified skin, making it incredibly tough. Its hardness was slightly less than that of the shell of a starry sky beast, but it had plenty of elasticity. Just as this genetically enhanced warrior was about to breach the shield formation, Xiao Yi suddenly leaped out, raising his shield and standard military knife to stand in front. When the genetically enhanced warrior collided with Xiao Yi, he jumped high, spinning the knife in the air before stabbing toward the warrior's back. The knife pierced the warrior's back, ending its life. "You all protect Lu Xing and let him shoot accurately. I will engage them." Xiao Yi changed his tactics. He realized that passively taking hits was not a viable strategy. Instead, he would rely on his proficiency in operating the mech to confront these genetically enhanced warriors. This tactic proved effective. With Xiao Yi's engagement, the genetically enhanced warriors couldn't sense danger as keenly, falling one by one to Lu Xing's surprise attacks. The only one in a tough spot was Xiao Yi. Although he excelled in operating the mech, the sheer number of opponents, including those extremely agile genetically enhanced warriors, overwhelmed him. He was hit several times. Ultimately, he could no longer hold on and was stabbed in the heart by the most agile of them. Yet, Lu Xing's bullet also claimed the life of that warrior in the midst of his excitement. When the lights came on, everyone except Xiao Yi was still alive. They had successfully cleared the second stage. Good, get ready, and let's start the third stage. The instructor rarely expressed approval. The simulation training room went dark again. As the countdown ended, indeed, this time, elemental civilization warriors appeared. This element of civilization includes shielded warriors as well as mages, with mastery over the 4 elemental spells of wind, fire, earth, and water. After a fierce battle, Xiao Yi's team finally held their ground. Once all the teams gathered, the instructor looked at Xiao Yi with excitement and said, "Great. Today, we witnessed a scene not seen in a century, an untrained rookie team breaking through 3 challenges in a row. You will gain special training qualifications. If you complete the training tasks, you will enter our country's most elite team, the Flying Tigers. Congratulations." The instructor was the first to applaud, and the other trainees looked over and clapped vigorously. The Flying Tigers is the most formidable team in the country, and anyone who joins it is among the country's elite talents. Xiao Yi took a breath. He finally began to understand what kind of world this was, a world where 4 civilizations clashed directly, a world where these civilizations collided with one another. He also started to grasp the meaning behind what the deity had said. If the Great Zhou civilization could not follow the correct development path and lacked the ability to survive in this world, then there would be no reason for the Great Zhou civilization to exist. In the next solar era, it would be the time for the Great Zhou civilization to be eliminated. 20 years later, Xiao Yi, covered in blood, reappeared in the secret chamber of the Maya civilization ruins. In front of him was still the deity with both human and beast features. Over the past 20 years, Xiao Yi had experienced countless battles and killings, and he had become an existence akin to that of a deity. "Do you know what to do now?" the deity asked. Xiao Yi shook his head. He found that the deeper he delved, the less he understood this world. He finally understood why the leaders of other civilizations chose to commit suicide after returning from the mainstream world. Compared to the mainstream world, the Great Zhou civilization was merely a fragile infant. The existence of the accompanying world was essentially a series of small worlds created by deities, serving as a breeding ground for the diversity of civilizations. If the direction of a civilization did not show any superiority, then the deities would extinguish that civilization and choose a new one to replace its existence. Although the Great Zhou kingdom was superior to the Maya civilization and Western civilization, and was more vibrant, it was still no match for the civilizations of the mainstream world. If there were no breakthroughs in the coming solar era, the Great Zhou civilization would inevitably face extinction. However, how could the Great Zhou civilization compete with the complex and vast mainstream civilizations? No wonder those leaders chose to end their own lives, because the civilizations in the accompanying world were too weak and followed paths that had already been tread, lacking uniqueness. "I don't know, but I want to commit suicide. I still have hundreds of years left, and I will lead the Great Zhou civilization to try to carve out its own path," Xiao Yi said. The deity smiled. "Good. The Maya prophecy no longer needs new predictions. Go ahead." As Xiao Yi exited the secret chamber, he was surprised to find Jin Hongyi still guarding outside. "Commander Xiao, how did you stay inside for 20 days? You nearly gave everyone a heart attack," Jin Hongyi said, trembling. Xiao Yi was taken aback. He then realized that all the changes in his true abilities had completely vanished here. His appearance had reverted to that of 20 years ago when he first entered. He had fought for 20 years in the real world, while only 20 days had passed in the associated world. Upon returning to the continent, the first thing Xiao Yi did was to halt his research in cosmic space and also stop his studies on the quantum microcosm. Because, as the universe of the associated world, it could never yield any results. Scientists had discovered that the expansion of the universe was faster than the speed of light, while the speed of information could never exceed it. This was a paradox, indicating that humanity would never be able to see the truth of the universe. Exploring the universe was utterly meaningless. Xiao Yi understood even better that the outer universe was merely a barrier set by those in the real world. The exploration of the universe would be an endless, futile endeavor, as humanity could not break through that barrier. The reason there was so much uncertainty in the microscopic quantum world was that the associated world was not the foundational world, and the basis of the microscopic world was not rigorous. This was why various inexplicable results emerged. The only way out for humanity, the only way out for the Great Zhou civilization, was to break through the barrier and open a passage to the real world. Xiao Yi ordered the construction of the longest proton collider that humanity could build around the equator. This was because he had received a message in the real world, which was sent by Yi Wanqing through the proton collider to the so-called parallel universe. Xiao Yi knew that to break through the barrier between the real world and this associated world, it was necessary to utilize the proton collider to think about the barrier and allow the Great Zhou civilization to enter the real world. This was humanity's only way out. A grand human infrastructure initiative began once again. The second conclusion had been reached. Astute readers might have noticed that this conclusion laid the groundwork for a new worldview, a new universe, After finishing this book, the author would start creating the next novel based on this new cosmology. For those who are interested, please continue to pay attention. Thank you to all the new and old readers. The official conclusion of this book is still ongoing, and I hope everyone continues to follow the book. Additionally, the side story being continued by the first reader, Owl of Summer, is also being updated. It is located in the concluding chapter of the second volume. Each time there is an update, I will post a reminder, hoping everyone will show their support. Due to formatting issues, there might be some confusion in reading. I hope everyone understands. Chapter 574. Humanity will not perish in such cold seawater. There were actually living organisms present. Xiao Ling shook his head. This must be an alien creature controlled by the Titans. Bang! A loud crash echoed, and the screen shook violently. Fortunately, the deep-water detector was very sturdy, and this gigantic creature failed to bite through its shell. It seemed we were in great danger underwater. To rescue Xiao Zhong, we must get closer to his location and then send an underwater submarine to save him, said Xiao Long. He patted Zhang Xiyuan's shoulder and said, bring the detector back. Let's find a spot closer to Xiao Zhong before we head into the sea. Zhang Xiyuan looked up and replied, Xiao Xiao has brought a nuclear submarine, but they won't arrive here for another month. Then we need to hurry. We have a lot to do, said Xiao Long. When Xiao Zhong woke up, he realized he wasn't in the warm bed from his dream, but was still lying in something cocoon-like. It had already been a week. Here, aside from eating and using the restroom, there was nothing else to do. The only thing he could do was sleep. During this time, he had almost made up for a lifetime of lost sleep. The Titan beings were likely discussing countermeasures, so they had no time to pay attention to Xiao Zhong. One of the Titans swam over and stopped in front of Xiao Zhong. Since arriving here, Xiao Zhong had only seen 3 Titans, 1 older and 2 younger. Human Commander, we can make another concession. We can help you humans modify your genes, eliminate the threat of diseases, and extend your lifespan. In exchange, we need to be stationed within the permafrost zones of the North and South Poles for the long term, the older Titan said slowly. This is the sincerity of our Titan race. We will uphold our promise and will not be your enemy. The Titan civilization will coexist peacefully with your Earth civilization. Xiao Zhong was taken aback. He hadn't expected the Titans to genuinely make concessions. Given the current situation, the Titans still held the advantage. They had turned Earth into a semi-frozen planet and had slaughtered the vast majority of humanity. The remaining humans were less than 1/10,000th of what they once were. And Earth's animals were nearly extinct as well. Although they were starting to recover, the alien beings with modified genes had a significant advantage over Earth's life forms. If they launched a large-scale extermination campaign against Earth's creatures, all would be doomed except for humans. Earth's technological development was also slow, and it would take decades or even centuries to pose a real threat to the Titans. Therefore, the Titans had no reason to compromise. While humans possessed technology to resist the Titans alongside other human civilizations in the universe, it had drained their vitality. No one knew how long it would take for humans to recover. At least under the current circumstances, humanity was still at a disadvantage. The Titans' initiative to seek peace indicated that they had their own hidden concerns. Xiao Zhong shook his head and replied, withdrawing from Earth is our bottom line. At the same time, we can guarantee that we will never initiate an attack on the Titans. After observing the Titans for several days, Xiao Zhong understood that they lacked expressions and emotional management. The only way to discern their feelings was by the length of pauses in their speech. The older Titanian remained silent for a long time before speaking. With our understanding of genetics, we can easily modify your genes to extend your lifespan to the theoretical maximum of 300 years or even more. We can also enhance your bodies to be taller, faster, and stronger. Xiao Zhong countered, why don't you modify your own bodies then? This question struck a nerve with the Titanian, who fell silent once more. Xiao Zhong had grown accustomed to this. Communicating with the Titans was like that. After saying something, one had to wait a long time for a response. Especially when the words were provocative. Our bodies are the most perfect, the bodies only deities can possess, the Titanian said slowly. We have no need for modification. Xiao Zhong suddenly smiled broadly. I thought you Titans never lied. It seems you can lie after all. If your bodies are the most perfect, then what about those alien beings? Their bodies can freely traverse any planet, withstand high temperatures, endure extreme cold, bear immense pressure, automatically absorb energy, and survive in a vacuum. But you can only live inside a shell-like shield. I believe that if your bodies were exposed to the atmosphere, you would perish in seconds. This time, the Titanian responded quickly. The conditions we propose are definitely beneficial to you. We still have many ways to deal with you Earthlings. We can deploy more solar sails, send more space fleets to occupy your planet, and establish bases. Our numbers can increase rapidly, and the creatures we create can pose a significant threat to you. We can further modify these creatures. The second generation of our Starry Sky armored beasts is already taking shape. Their bodies will be even more robust, and the genetic defects have been corrected, freeing them from lifespan limitations. Once the second generation of Starry Sky armored beasts erupts again, you humans will have nowhere to hide. The older Titanian said. Do you believe what I say? Xiao Zhong fell silent for a few seconds, and then replied, I believe. However, he quickly shifted his tone, but I believe even more in the power of technology. We will still find ways to deal with you and eliminate you from Earth. Xiao Zhong looked up at the Titanian with a mysterious smile. Moreover, we will launch a counterattack against your home planet. This time, the Titanian responded even faster. You do not have the strength. Xiao Zhong laughed. No, we do. Our Voyager spacecraft is about to launch, and we will arrive in the Saturnian belt in 3 years. Then we will initiate the first wave of counterattacks against your planet. Trust me, this wave will show you what the power of technology truly is. Without waiting for the Titanian to respond, Xiao Zhong continued. This has already been validated in other universes. We will make your planet suffer heavy losses. The Titanian fell silent again, and eventually chose not to speak, turning around and leaving. Xiao Zhong knew that he was reporting back to the home planet. Chapter 575. Similarities between Earthlings and Titanians. Xiao Zhong was not exaggerating. The spacecraft Voyager had already been completed, and the captain had been chosen, consisting of both an experienced and a new individual. The old captain was Yang Liwei, who had previously been to space and survived in an underground nuclear base. The new captain was Zhao Dongfeng, the child of Zhao Wanwei, the former captain of the cruiser 303. This spacecraft was built using the highest technology available to humanity. They would follow the trajectory already completed by the first spacecraft to replicate humanity's victories. Moreover, due to the adoption of new laser propulsion technology and solar propulsion technology, the speed would be twice that of the previous spacecraft. Additionally, after years of research, humanity had mastered a comprehensive and simplified method to reach the Saturnian belt. Previously, Saturn probes required the acceleration from Earth and Jupiter, necessitating multiple orbits around both planets. The actual distance traveled was far greater than the straight-line distance. However, after years of exploration, humanity had halved the travel distance. Thus, what once took 8 years to reach the Saturn system now only required 3 years. According to future technologies, humanity was continually increasing its speed. Information in Xiao Zhong's mind indicated that humanity would reach the Saturnian belt in less than a year in the not-too-distant future. This news was devastating for the Titanian beings. They took 8 years to reach Earth, while Earthlings could reach Titan in just 1 year. This meant the Titanian beings would only be able to passively endure attacks. Furthermore, technological advancements were occurring rapidly. By the time the Titanians' latest gene warships reached Earth, Earth's technology would have already undergone several upgrades. The gap between their civilizations would be negligible, and humanity's technological civilization might even surpass the Titanians' gene civilization. This was what gave Xiao Zhong confidence. The older Titanian returned and said to Xiao Zhong, Our captain wishes to see you. After speaking, the Titanian turned and swiftly swam forward like a fish. The cocoon enveloping Xiao Zhong also began to move in the cold liquid. This was Xiao Zhong's first time traversing this base, and he looked around, carefully examining the strange structure. It was evident that this base was not man-made but rather a biological entity. It felt as if they were moving within a living organism. The outer shell was composed of skeletal and muscular tissues, appearing elastic yet remarkably tough. Inside was a vast space supported by bones, and this space was separated by membranous structures. Within these spaces flowed a cold liquid. Xiao Zhong realized that they did not need to swim. Even relying on the movement of the liquid, they could likely navigate the entire base. The entire base resembled an animal, and the Titanian beings were like parasites within this organism, with the liquid acting as blood or bodily fluids. They can flow through the blood and move freely within these fluids. Xiao Zhong began to understand. This was the spaceship of the Titanians. After arriving on Earth, it relied on the remains of a celestial beast for nourishment, continuously expanding itself until it formed the massive underground base that exists now. The Titanian research in genetic biology is indeed quite advanced. The artificial organisms they create reach astonishing levels of complexity. Soon, they entered a more complex area, which was somewhat different from the previous one. There were many pipeline-like structures connecting the surrounding biological tissues, which were more intricate and resembled the folds of a brain. All these connecting pipelines converged into a central operating platform of sorts. Xiao Zhong felt that these pipelines were the control interface for the base and the core area for managing this enormous organism. In this core area, there was a large screen-like object observing everything outside. Clearly, this screen received visual signals from the massive organism. They had created something akin to a human monitor using biological technology, which was truly awe-inspiring. At the operating platform, a fish-like Titanian was manipulating the controls. This Titanian was clearly female, distinct from the featureless female Titanian Xiao Zhong had seen before, as this one exhibited obvious feminine characteristics. Most importantly, she seemed to be pregnant. Xiao Zhong's attention quickly shifted to the side. Next to the wall, there was a row of objects wrapped in semi-transparent membranes. It seemed that something was encased within these objects. As Xiao Zhong moved closer, he had a bad feeling that the encased items resembled human wombs. As if sensing Xiao Zhong's thoughts, the cocoon-like entity actually moved closer to these objects. Xiao Zhong took a glance and confirmed his suspicion. Inside each of these womb-like structures, there was an embryo developing. "I am Captain Eve. Welcome." The female Titanian swam over and stood beside Xiao Zhong, gazing affectionately at the embryos. "Yes, you guessed correctly. My name is derived from your Earth legends, making it easier for you to understand." This female Titanian was clearly more intelligent than the others Xiao Zhong had encountered. She didn't need Xiao Zhong to respond. She could read his thoughts from his physiological indicators. "These are the embryos of our Titanian species. We have mastered the ability to reproduce independently and can reproduce indefinitely. Of course, highly intelligent beings face the challenge of prolonged gestation." Eve extended a tentacle and gently touched the embryos. The lower the organism, the simpler the reproduction process. They can give birth to tens of thousands, or even millions, of offspring at once. On Titan, there exists a type of lower life form that can reproduce billions of offspring at once. However, for our highly intelligent beings, it is different. Our offspring need to develop powerful brains to survive. Eve turned to face Xiao Zhong, saying, "I have a basic understanding of your species. Like us Titans, humans also require several years for their brains to fully mature, and our bodies cannot endure such a long gestation period. Therefore, we give birth to embryos that have not yet matured, allowing them to continue growing during the subsequent nursing period until they can live independently." Eve looked at Xiao Zhong, and surprisingly, her face displayed an expression unlike the three other Titans. "This is how you humans are, isn't it?" Xiao Zhong noticed that this Eve was clearly of a higher rank than the other three. Indeed, wherever there are people, hierarchies exist, and the Titans are no exception. Xiao Zhong nodded yes. He had no intention or need to lie. Chapter 576. Does the Dark Forest Law really exist? Humans carry their young for 10 months, giving birth to infants that are still completely helpless and require 3 to 4 years of care before they can barely manage to eat and sleep on their own. To live independently, it takes at least 7 to 8 years, especially in harsh living conditions. In wealthier families, one cannot become independent until they reach 17 or 18. Before humans were largely wiped out by the cosmic beasts, it is said that there were still individuals who depended on their parents, unable to survive in society even at 30 or 40 years old. However, this phenomenon no longer exists today. Humans must learn many skills from a young age. For instance, Xiao Zhong was already capable of surviving alone in the wild by the age of 4 or 5. "This is where you fall behind," Eve said, gently touching her stomach. "My fetus is already a month old, and tomorrow I will give birth to it and place it in the embryo incubator for further development until it is 3 years old. After it comes out of the incubator, it will be able to live independently and become a basic qualified warrior." Eve looked at Xiao Zhong. "I will continue to bear children, and my offspring will also continue to reproduce when they reach adulthood. At this rate, in just 50 years, our numbers will surpass yours. Tell me, at that time, who will truly be the rulers of Earth, us or you?" Xiao Zhong then understood why the Titans had remained quiet after entering Earth. Without launching a large-scale invasion, they had only sent a small number of extraterrestrial beings to create disturbances, much like the cosmic beasts of the past, gathering strength. Moreover, this was just the number of Titans. They were simultaneously cultivating even more extraterrestrial life forms. The rapid cultivation of large numbers of lower life forms could lead to them occupying the entire Earth within a few years if no measures were taken to curb their reproduction. "Why do you invade Earth?" "There's Enceladus nearby, a cold planet," Xiao Zhong asked. "Enceladus is not suitable for us. It's small and lacks liquid oceans. Most importantly, it lacks the atmosphere we need," Eve replied, casting a glance at Xiao Zhong, her round eyes surprisingly expressive. "Compared to Earth, we only need to make minor adjustments to create a suitable environment for our survival. Is your planet not livable enough?" Xiao Zhong asked, voicing what everyone was thinking. Is Titan simply intent on destroying humanity by invading Earth? Is it true that in the universe, as described in the three-body problem, there exists a dark forest principle where every civilization is like a hunter in the dark, and once they discover another civilization, there is only one action: to shoot and eliminate the other? That's a good question. I can reveal more to you, Eve said slowly. "We observed your existence through comets over 1,000 years ago." 1,000 years ago? Xiao Zhong felt a chill. It was as uncomfortable as learning that a neighbor had been secretly watching you for years. "We watched you develop from an ignorant, primitive civilization to your current advanced state." Eve looked at Xiao Zhong. "If you were in our position, what would you do?" Xiao Zhong pondered for a moment before responding. "We have a saying regarding the dark forest principle. When one civilization discovers another, the higher-level civilization that discovers the other will hide." Eve nodded slightly. "Exactly. That's what we did. However, We began adjusting our genetic research direction to study organisms that could defend against your civilization. Eve's gaze fixed on Xiao Zhong, giving him an uncomfortable feeling as if he were being stared at by a fish. We harbor no malice towards your civilization. At least initially we didn't. Otherwise, if we had invaded Earth back then, you would have been eliminated long ago. Xiao Zhong chuckled. I suspect you simply didn't find the right way to deal with Earthlings. Acting recklessly against another civilization without absolute certainty not only exposes your own intentions, but could also bring disaster upon yourselves. Although Xiao Zhong couldn't confirm whether the Dark Forest principle was truly correct, one thing was certain. Once the Titan beings acted against humanity, they would reveal their existence. Just like the celestial armored beasts, which dealt a devastating blow to humanity, but also exposed the location of the Titan civilization, allowing Earth to discover their existence. The saying strike the snake and not kill it, only to be harmed in return illustrates this principle. Humanity is like a snake. If the Titan civilization cannot eliminate humanity in one go, allowing them to catch their breath, they will pose a threat to the Titans. That's exactly what's happening now. Humanity is counterattacking the Titan civilization. Moreover, the intensity of the counterattack would be unbearable for the Titans. You have always wanted to eliminate us, but you just lack confidence. Xiao Zhong ruthlessly exposed Eve's lies. Eve pondered for a long time and suddenly sighed. That's right, it is indeed so. We originally thought that the starry sky armored beast would be enough to annihilate you. But we did not expect that only a few tens of thousands of survivors could form a force to resist us. A smile appeared at the corner of Xiao Zhong's mouth. If we hadn't discovered the secrets of the parallel universe, humanity would have truly faced disaster. However, Eve, your civilization's development is really too slow. 1,000 years ago, you knew of our existence. Yet it took you another 1,000 years to find a way to deal with us. At this speed, you will eventually be replaced by human civilization. Eve nodded rarely. That's right. Our true hostility towards your Earth civilization actually began decades ago when you launched a probe. The Cassini probe? Xiao Zhong's heart stirred. Yes. This probe made us realize that you might have discovered our existence. We had no choice but to launch an attack against you, Eve said. But we have always acted very friendly, haven't we? Xiao Zhong asked in confusion. Since humanity began transmitting information into space, it has been spreading goodwill. The messages sent by Earthlings to the universe were all very friendly, regardless of which probes sent them. They contained positive content, including images of humanity, songs, and more. Eve suddenly became angry. It is precisely these damned messages you sent that forced us to attack you. Did you not consider how foolish it is to send information that reveals your position to the universe? The most critical point is that it doesn't matter if you expose yourselves. Being so close to you, we will also become targets for other civilizations. Your foolishness not only endangers yourselves, but also drags us down with you, Eve said angrily. Xiao Zhong fell silent. Chapter 577 Safe Return. He knew nothing about the universe. However, he did know one thing. Humanity is very eager to communicate with external civilizations. In the vast universe, humanity is lonely. There has never been a neighbor or kindred spirit to communicate with. Humanity longs to find the existence of advanced civilizations in the universe. Have you never thought about coexisting peacefully with our human civilization? Using your genetic technology to exchange with our scientific technology, complementing each other? Xiao Zhong asked softly. Eve was silent. You have biological genetic technology, we have scientific technology. This is not an insurmountable chasm. We can completely communicate and progress together. For the first time, Xiao Zhong extended a friendly invitation to the Titans. Although he had no goodwill towards the Titans in his heart, the outcome of a war between two civilizations, who lives and who dies, is hard to say. Even if victory is achieved, it should also be a Pyrrhic victory. Instead, peace would lead to a win-win situation. This time, Eve remained silent for even longer. Xiao Zhong waited patiently. It seemed like an hour had passed, and Xiao Zhong thought he wouldn't receive a response from Eva. Finally, Eva spoke. Peace is possible. Communication is not. She stared at Xiao Zhong and continued. Let us take a step back. We will give up Antarctica and only guard the Arctic, living solely beneath the Arctic ice. No mutual invasion. If you agree, I will let you go back. If you don't, you will die here. Xiao Zhong sneered. It seems I will die here then. Eva fell silent. Xiao Zhong touched the remote control in his hand. With a press, his core energy driver would explode. The explosion would heat the methane liquid here and allow external oxygen to rush in, leading to a larger explosion. The entire ocean beneath the Arctic ice would erupt violently. If the Titan aliens wanted to die, they would take them along with him. Eva looked at Xiao Zhong and asked, Aren't you afraid of dying? Xiao Zhong shook his head. I am. I'm only 18. I want to live well. How could I not be afraid of death? However, he glanced around. I wouldn't endanger all of humanity just to save myself. Eva fell silent again. This time moving to the control panel, remaining quiet for a long time. Xiao Zhong understood that this silence was not just silence. It was a report to her home planet. A round-trip message exchange would take at least 3 hours. This silence would be long. Sure enough, nearly 4 hours later, Eva returned to Xiao Zhong, glanced at him, and said, "We stand by our conditions. We do not intend to take your life. We hope that after you return to your base, you can gather the high-level leaders of humanity to think things through. This condition is reasonable, given your current situation. It is difficult for your kind to utilize the Arctic. Handing over a piece of idle land to us will not affect you. As for cultural exchange, we can help improve human genes, but we are not interested in your technology. Moreover, we are already here, and you have no effective means against us. This is a fact that you should accept regarding our presence on Earth. This is already our bottom line." Eva clapped her hands, and Jonathan stepped forward, kneeling opposite her and saying devoutly, "Jonathan, heed the will of the divine." Eva didn't even look at him and directly instructed, "Safely send him back." Jonathan was clearly puzzled. He didn't understand why Xiao Zhong was being released. However, he would not oppose the orders of the Titan aliens. "Yes," Jonathan said, bowing on the ground. Eva still didn't look at him. She slowly turned around and handed Xiao Zhong a writhing object, saying, "This is a gift for you. It is a perfect human body created using human DNA information. Just soak it in nutrient solution, and it will naturally grow into a superhuman. This is our sincerity and what we want to convey to you. Coexist peacefully with us, and we can offer you what you need." Xiao Zhong held the wriggling object in his hands, feeling an indescribable sensation rising within him, as if this thing had a life of its own and a strong desire to survive, making him want to see it thrive. He returned along the path he came, remaining quiet throughout the journey, deep in thought. He hadn't expected the Titans to let him go. The cocoon had been released from the enormous creature and was now drifting through the cold seawater, only stopping when it reached a beam of light coming from above. Xiao Zhong realized they had arrived beneath an ice hole. As the cocoon rose, the temperature around it noticeably increased. Although it was still very cold, the bone-chilling sensation had dissipated. Xiao Zhong sensed that inside the creature, the temperature might have been around -100 degrees, while in the seawater, it was probably about -100 degrees as well, and the ice hole was around -70 to 80 degrees. Above the ice hole, the temperature seemed to be around 60 to 70 degrees. This was not the ice hole Xiao Zhong had descended into. Jonathan had chosen a different exit. Xiao Ling was searching for Xiao Zhong's signal. The last signal sent by Xiao Zhong was in this ice hole. Although Xiao Ling knew she was likely wasting her efforts, she was still diligently carrying out her task. She hoped for a miracle, hoping to see Xiao Zhong's signal appear. Suddenly, a red dot flickered on the screen. She rubbed her eyes, wondering if she was imagining things. But the red dot flashed again. This time, Xiao Ling was certain that Xiao Zhong had truly appeared, and his signal was indeed present. Second brother, big brother's signal. Tears streamed down Xiao Ling's face as she choked up with emotion. With the signal from Big Brother, Xiao Long quickly rushed over, nearly slamming the door open. He dashed to the screen and saw that encouraging red dot. Yes, it was Xiao Zhong's signal. And it was not far away, only about 10 kilometers. "Brother, you finally appeared. I've searched for you so hard." Xiao Long, disregarding his tears, shouted, "Brothers, hurry up and get ready. We're going to find my big brother." Inside the nuclear submarine, Xiao Xiao had her eyes slightly closed. They had been navigating under the ice for a while now. During this time, there had been no signal from Xiao Zhong, filling her with anxiety. Yet, the usually calm Xiao Xiao remained composed, steadfastly continuing their journey. Suddenly, a communications officer rushed over, excitedly reporting, "Captain, we've just received communications from airborne radar. They've detected Commander Zhao's signal, and they are heading towards it." Tears suddenly streamed down Xiao Zhao's face. "Big brother, are you okay?" Chapter 578. What a grand firework. The ice base, destruction. The cocoon opened, and Xiao Zhong finally emerged from the cocoon that had confined him for nearly 10 days. He turned to look at the cocoon and reached out to touch it. "This thing is really nice. After staying in here for so long, it doesn't even have a smell." Jonathan snorted coldly. "The power of the divine is something you, a mere mortal, will never comprehend." Xiao Zhong glanced at the annoying Jonathan and suddenly said, "Your deity has sent me a gift, and we humans believe in reciprocity. So, I will return the favor." Xiao Zhong took off his mech and left it in the cocoon, stating, "This is my specially made mech, representing the highest level of human technology. Consider this gift as my response. You can allow them to study it. Technological civilization will certainly surpass genetic civilization in the future." Jonathan snorted. "The deity wouldn't care about gifts from you insignificant humans." Xiao Zhong grinned. "Whether it's needed or not, you don't get to decide. This is my gift to the deity, and how it should be handled should be determined by the deity." He tightened his clothes and waved at Jonathan, saying, "Goodbye." Jonathan sneered and looked at Xiao Zhong. "Without the deity's blessing, you'll freeze to death in this snow in less than half an hour." Xiao Zhong shook his head. "There's no need for you to worry. Someone will come to get me soon." Jonathan stopped talking, turned, and entered his own cocoon, taking the one containing Xiao Zhong's mech back into the ice hole. Only then did Xiao Zhong feel the chill. The reason he sent the mech to the Titans was simple. The Titans absolutely could not survive on Earth. According to the information Eva had given him, Xiao Zhong understood that the Titans were not very powerful in Antarctica. Most of their strength was in the Arctic. The Arctic is mostly ocean beneath the ice, making it easier for them to build underwater bases. On the other hand, the Antarctic has a landmass beneath the ice, and they can only create bases along the coast, which is limited. Destroying the Titans' base at the North Pole would essentially eliminate their power on Earth. He could not allow Eva and the others to survive on Earth. In just a few years, Eva would breed a large group of Titans and cultivate a number of alien beings. At that point, humanity would be in a desperate struggle. Only by destroying the Titans' underwater bases could humanity free up their hands to deal with the distant Titan planet. Xiao Zhong had already set a timed explosion for the miniature nuclear energy source, and at that time, there would be an earth-shattering explosion. Damn it, without the mech. It's really cold. Xiao Zhong stomped his feet, shrank his neck, and trembled all over. Bro, big brother, Commander Xiao. Several vehicles suddenly stopped, and Xiao Long and Xiao Ling rushed over, ready to give Xiao Zhong a big hug. Don't stop, run. Xiao Zhong dodged their embrace and quickly leaped onto a vehicle, shouting, don't be dazed. Hurry up and run towards the main base. He estimated that once the miniature nuclear bomb was detonated, it would simultaneously ignite the methane inside that enormous creature. Such a massive amount of methane being ignited would cause a huge explosion. If they didn't hurry to escape, they would die alongside the Titans. Xiao Long, who was closest to Xiao Zhong and understood his thoughts best, immediately calmed his excitement and called everyone to get in the vehicle. Hurry, start the car, and run. Immediately notify the aircraft in the sky to hurry and land. We need to take off. In the ocean, the messenger ran back again. Xiao Xiao excitedly asked, is there news about my brother? The messenger, sweating nervously, replied, we just received news to surface immediately, approach the shore, and prepare for the intense explosion shockwave. Seeing the messenger's anxious expression, Xiao Xiao suddenly calmed down. It seems my brother is fine. This kind of thing can only be caused by him. They fired torpedoes at the ice layer to break it open, and they surfaced. An aircraft landed on the ice, and 70 or 80 people quickly ran inside until the plane took off. Xiao Zhong finally relaxed, saying, don't rush back. Let's circle in the sky and see if this fireworks display is powerful enough. Jian, limping slightly, walked over to Xiao Zhong and whispered, Xiao Zhong, it's all my fault for dragging you into this. Xiao Zhong smiled. I was just thinking of visiting their lair. You've done me a favor. Come, let me show you the fireworks, the biggest display in history. Suddenly, a massive bulge erupted from beneath the ice in the distance, followed by a thunderous explosion that engulfed the entire world in flames. Those alien creatures couldn't escape and were completely surrounded by fire. The ice layer was overturned, and a large mushroom cloud surged into the sky. A shockwave hit, causing the aircraft to shake violently, almost losing control. Xiao Long exclaimed, wow, what a big firework. Xiao Ling was so frightened that she jumped into Gao Xiaobing's arms. When she noticed others looking at her, she quickly broke free, her face flushed, and continued to watch the apocalyptic scene outside. The submarine where Xiao Xiao was located was lifted high by a huge wave and then crashed down heavily. This made Xiao Xiao, who had been calm, unable to help but exclaim, what on earth did my brother do? Once the wave subsided slightly, Xiao Xiao issued another command. Continue to dive. Let's go see the Arctic. Jian was startled at first, but fortunately, Xiao Zhong held her, preventing her from falling. In Xiao Zhong's embrace, Jian suddenly felt very safe. Even if the plane were to crash, she wouldn't feel any danger. In Xiao Zhong's arms was the safest harbor in the world. Is this firework beautiful? Xiao Zhong smiled and asked. Jian just buried her head in Xiao Zhong's chest and murmured, you're more beautiful. She completely ignored the teasing looks from others. Xiao Zhong felt a bit awkward. He pushed her away gently, but couldn't move her. Xiao Long picked up the strange object that had fallen on the ground, which Xiao Zhong had been holding, and curiously asked, what is this? Xiao Zhong was taken aback, nearly forgetting about it. He patted Jian, then stood up, took the object from Xiao Long, glanced at it, took a deep breath, and plunged a dagger into it. A puddle of viscous liquid oozed out, filling the cabin with a strange smell, something that seemed fragrant yet also lacked any scent. The shell of the object had opened, revealing what was inside. Xiao Zhong then realized that what was outside was just a shell, wrapping something inside. He had only pierced the shell moments ago. Chapter 579. Artificial embryo. Jian squatted down and pried open the shell, revealing the object inside. An embryo? Everyone exclaimed in surprise. Inside the shell was a transparent amniotic sac filled with nutrient liquid. Within the nutrient liquid, a tiny embryo was growing. The embryo was only the size of a finger, curled up like a small child, just as it would be in a mother's womb. Everyone had learned a bit about medicine and recognized that this was the appearance of a human embryo. Xiao Zhong raised his foot, preparing to crush the embryo. He did not believe that the beings from the distant planet would have good intentions. This embryo was definitely not anything positive. Xiao Xiao quickly grabbed Xiao Zhong, saying, "Brother, where did this come from?" Xiao Zhong replied, "This is a gift from the beings from that distant planet. I feel it's not a good thing." As he spoke, he raised his foot again, ready to stomp down. A group of people hurriedly held him back. Xiaolong said, "Brother, don't be impulsive. What if this was created using your DNA?" Xiao Zhong paused, and everyone else was taken aback as well. Xiaolong continued, "If it was made with your DNA, then it would be your child. Could you really bring yourself to do that?" Xiao Zhong shuddered. "I doubt it's mine. It should belong to someone else. I was only there for a few days." Jian squatted down and held the amniotic sac, saying, "Even if there is some conspiracy, it's just a child. I refuse to believe a child can cause that much trouble. Xiao Zhong, let us raise it, and when it's born, we'll see whether it's your child or someone else's." Xiao Zhong shook his head. "I still feel uneasy." Xiao Long patted Xiao Zhong's shoulder. "What is there to be uneasy about? It's just a little kid. What trouble could it cause? Besides, since it was created by those beings, maybe we humans can learn something from it." Yang Tianqi chimed in. "Yeah, it's just a child. What tricks could it possibly have? We're not afraid of the beings from that distant planet. Why should we be afraid of a child?" Xiao Zhong, did you go to their base and suddenly lose your courage? Xiao Zhong sighed. In fact, he really couldn't bring himself to do it. If this embryo was indeed derived from his DNA, it would mean it was his child. Even a tiger wouldn't eat its own cubs. How could he bring himself to do something like that? The amniotic sac was made of an unknown material, incredibly sturdy and insulated. Outside the sac, there was a connected tube, resembling an umbilical cord. Jian carefully lifted the entire amniotic sac and placed it into an incubator. Looking at the child, she suddenly felt a surge of maternal instincts, as if this small life had merged into her heart. She turned to Xiao Zhong and asked, "Xiao Zhong, how do we take care of this?" Xiao Zhong thought for a moment and said, "The being said it needs to be kept in nutrient liquid." Nutrient liquid? Amniotic fluid. Perhaps? Jian, being a woman, naturally had a strong intuition about these matters. She began to contemplate how to obtain amniotic fluid to nurture this embryo. "Brother, what did you see under the ice?" Xiaoling leaned over and asked. Everything has come to an end now, and Xiaoling finally has the time and mood to ask this question. It's something everyone wants to know. Everyone gathered around. Xiao Zhong glanced at everyone and said, "I saw the Titan aliens. They look like octopuses. When I get back, I'll draw their appearance for you. But just drawing it out is meaningless. It's just a flat 2D representation. I think you should use 3D simulation software to create one. That way it will be more intuitive." Xiao Long interjected. "I'm not familiar with simulation software." "Jian's sister-in-law is," Xiao Long said casually. His words made Jian blush, but she looked at Xiao Zhong eagerly. Xiao Zhong didn't refute this and said, "Okay, I'll collaborate with Jian to create the appearance of these Titan aliens for everyone to see. However, we must clear out the Titan aliens at the South Pole. Their reproductive ability is astonishing. In 50 years, their numbers could surpass ours, so we can't be careless. Additionally, we need to hasten preparations for our counterattack. A large number of Titan aliens are already on their way to Earth." Xiao Zhong continued, "Also, we need to carefully check the North Pole to see if there are any overlooked Titan alien bases beneath the ice." Xiao Long replied, "You don't need to worry about that. Xiao Xiao has already gone to the North Pole." Xiao Zhong nodded, trusting Xiao Xiao's abilities greatly. At the North Pole, beneath the icy waters, a nuclear submarine was advancing. Although the ice surface had been shattered by a massive explosion, in the extreme cold, the ice began to recongeal. "Report. We have discovered an underwater base." An officer came to report. Xiao Xiao had been in the Arctic Circle for a week, during which she had found 2 underwater bases. Through studying the seawater here, humanity had understood that beneath the entire Arctic ice layer, the Titan aliens had set up a vast area using a special filtration net. In this area, oxygen was filtered out while gases like methane and ammonia were absorbed, forming a huge cold sea region. These cold sea areas are the strongholds of the Titan aliens' underwater bases. Thanks to the external filtration net, the Titan aliens' bases were very secure, although filled with methane. Explosions would not occur. This was also the simplest method for the Titan aliens to transform Earth. However, this method has significant drawbacks. If a massive explosion occurs, causing a large influx of air, it could ignite the methane sea. All right, launch nuclear torpedoes at the 3 underwater bases. After launching, we will immediately surface. Xiao Xiao issued her attack order. In the first universe, Xiao Zhong stood beside a hole in the Arctic ice, gently closed his eyes, and focused on the information in his mind. This was because the particle collider could only transmit information to the last universe. Other universes could not utilize the collider for communication. Therefore, Commander Xiao Yi decided to suspend the communication of the particle collider and instead utilized quantum entanglement to allow these children to exchange information among themselves. Although uncertainty increased, and they could not freely control the timing and content of the messages, after years of exploration, They had grasped one thing. Intense emotions and significant events were likely to be transmitted across the entire parallel universe. It would be incredibly easy for the people of the first universe to eradicate the Titan beings on Earth. However, Xiaoyi still chose to let the Titans develop, wanting the humans from other universes to find their own solutions to deal with the Titans. Chapter 580, Space Mothership. Thus, Xiao Zhong arrived at the ice cavern to perceive the information being transmitted from his counterparts in other universes. Suddenly, Xiao Zhong opened his eyes, having received a strong message. It was a breathtaking explosion. He picked up the phone and dialed. Father, the Titans on Earth in the other universe have been eradicated. We can take action now. All right, retreat to a safe zone. The explosion will start soon, Xiao Yi replied. A few hours later, Xiao Zhong stood on solid ground. Next to him was Jian. The convergence of the universe brought Jian closer to him, and their relationship grew intimate. Jian, this will be the most magnificent fireworks show in history, Xiao Zhong said, wrapping his arm around Jian's waist as they sweetly gazed at the distant ice fields. Boom! A deafening explosion echoed, shaking the earth. Once everything calmed down, Jian suddenly exclaimed, "What is that?" Jian quickly ran over, crouching to pick up something small that was thickly wrapped in a shell. Xiao Zhong instinctively took a knife to cut open the shell, revealing the amniotic sac inside, where a tiny human embryo lay. "This is a gift from the Titans," Xiao Zhong blurted out. 5 years later, Universe 107. Since learning about the impending invasion of numerous biological spacecraft by the Titans, humanity has ramped up its efforts in space development. Although the population on Earth was small, once unified, their efficiency was remarkably high. The Earth gradually became warmer. The permafrost retreated, and habitable areas increased. The entire world was developing positively. On the desolate moon, humanity constructed its first spaceport and established nuclear energy plants and metal smelting factories. The moon was rich in helium-3 and titanium resources, which were the two essential core materials for constructing spacecraft, one for energy and the other for the ship's body. Simultaneously, a water plant was built on the moon, utilizing the moon's own ice for purification to produce drinking water. The moon lacked only food and air. Heavy transport rockets developed using recyclable technology significantly reduced transportation costs, enabling continuous supply of air and food to the moon. At the same time, living bases began to be constructed on the moon, allowing humans from Earth to shuttle back and forth between the moon and Earth. Due to the abundant resources on Earth and advanced technology, the birth rate of infants has significantly increased. Based on in-depth research conducted on the amniotic sac brought back by Xiao Zhong, artificial wombs have been successfully constructed. This can be considered a true gift from the Titan inhabitants to the people of Earth. The first batch of children born from these artificial wombs has already arrived, with the second and third batches currently in gestation. At this rate, the human population is expected to reach 2 billion within a century. However, upon reaching this milestone, humanity will slow down the birth rate, aiming to increase the population to 4 billion over the next 100 years and stabilize it thereafter. Humanity will avoid all past mistakes and establish the most suitable system. Xiao Zhong has proposed the idea of abolishing the concept of nations and races, instead introducing a comprehensive concept of Earth residents. All residents of Earth will be members of the Earth Federation, which will have a unified language, currency, scheduling, and mechanisms. The Earth Federation will be divided regionally, but there will be no distinctions based on race or nation. The entire Earth Federation will strive towards one goal: to eliminate the Titan inhabitants. At the lunar spaceport, Xiao Zhong looked at the 3 magnificent spacecraft docked there, feeling quite ambitious. Yang Liwei and Zhao Dongfang's spacecraft had arrived at Titan 2 years ago. They captured in celestial body and conducted the first bombardment of Titan. According to the timeline, they will return to Earth in another year. A larger attack on Titan is still forthcoming. This time, Xiao Zhong will personally lead 2 motherships and 200 warships to Titan. The latest advancements in space propulsion technology have significantly increased the speed of the spacecraft. The current fleet heading to Titan will only take a year and a half to reach the target. Moreover, they have an additional mission: to intercept the numerous biological spacecraft from Titan heading towards Earth. Now, the scales of victory have tipped in favor of the people of Earth. It takes the Titan inhabitants 8 years to reach Earth, while humanity only needs a year and a half to get to Titan. This means that the fleet sent by the Titans gives Earth 8 years to prepare for battle, whereas the fleet sent by the Titans has only a year and a half to respond. The advantage for Earth is substantial. Before Yang Liwei and Zhao Dongfang set out, the Titan inhabitants had already departed. Now that Yang Liwei and Zhao Dongfang have returned, the Titans are still on their way. Furthermore, with the current strength of Earth's fleet, they have sufficient capability to annihilate the Titan fleet. The Titan spacecraft are nearing the convergence point. We can set off, Xiao Xiao said over the communicator. Xiao Zhong replied solemnly, "All right, we will depart immediately." Xiao Xiao, I leave Earth in your hands. I hope that by the time I return, Earth will be even more prosperous. Don't worry, brother, Xiao Xiao responded. Xiao Zhong waved his hand. One by one, the spaceship pilots and operators boarded their spacecraft via a conveyor belt. Xiao Zhong also held onto the conveyor belt and began making his way to his command ship. A few minutes later, he floated into the command ship. This fleet consisted of 3 motherships. The command ship under Xiao Zhong's command carried 100 small warships, while the other 2 motherships each carried 50 small warships. The designs of the motherships were quite similar, with a lookout and control room at the front and a gravity zone at the rear that resembled a horizontal Ferris wheel. The centripetal force generated during rotation created a gravity-like environment similar to that on Earth. This rotating area served as the living, training, and working zones, suitable for long-term habitation and training. In contrast, other areas and the small warships lacked gravity devices, making them suitable for short-term use. This was the collective effort of humanity, embodying almost all of their strength in the quest for space power, and it represented humanity's hope. Therefore, Xiao Zhong personally led this fleet on an expedition to Titan. Their first mission was to intercept the biological warships sent by Titan along the way. Although Xiao Zhong was confident, they had limited knowledge about Titan's biological warships. This was an encounter battle. However, Xiao Zhong was confident of victory. He firmly believed that technological civilization would ultimately triumph over genetic civilization. The departure had to occur at precisely the right time to reach the first interception point. Xiao Zhong issued the order to depart. The Titan inhabitants needed to utilize Jupiter's gravity for acceleration, so their flight path mirrored that of humanity's probe from 20 years ago, requiring a lengthy detour. However, Xiao Zhong's spacecraft employed new propulsion technology that did not rely on Earth's or Jupiter's gravity, using nuclear energy for propulsion and lasers for precise direction adjustments. Their speed far exceeded that of the Titan inhabitants. The first interception point was where their flight trajectory intersected with the closest path of the Titan warships. Establishing a spaceport on the moon had the advantage of not having to overcome Earth's strong gravity and atmosphere, allowing for the construction of extremely large spacecraft. Such massive vessels could not be launched from Earth, at least with current technology. Thus, the construction of the lunar spaceport was deemed essential. To save energy, a space elevator was built between the lunar spaceport and the moon itself, allowing all supplies to be transported directly to the lunar spaceport. With the successful experience gained from the lunar spaceport, Xiao Zhong planned to take the second step and construct a base on Mars, while also establishing a foothold and a spaceport there. This would advance the front lines and prevent Earth from suffering damage. All attacks from Titan would be intercepted first by the Mars base. Humanity was gradually turning the tide of disadvantage. Time was a friend to humanity and an enemy to the Titan inhabitants. A month later, the space fleet arrived at the interception area. Report: the biological fleet of the Titans is approaching, with a distance of 100,000 kilometers. At our speed, we will encounter them in a day, Xiao Ling reported. Xiao Zhong glanced at the received image, where countless small dots covered the entire screen. How many are there? Close to 1,000, Xiao Ling replied. Although the Titan biological fleet was numerous, Xiao Zhong felt no fear. The attack methods of the biological fleet in the sky were limited and seemed weaker compared to human laser weapons. Laser weapons have almost no loss in space, with long range and high speed. Their only drawback is that they lack sufficient power. Human spacecraft have a clear advantage over biological ships. Spacecraft utilize nuclear propulsion, supplemented by kinetic energy for precise calibration, making them very agile in space, capable of abrupt stops and turns. In contrast, biological ships rely on a single propulsion method, reaction thrust. This means that to change direction, stop suddenly, or accelerate, they must jettison some of their mass. As a result, the sustained combat capability of biological ships is very limited. Of course, this is based on human observations. Perhaps the Titans have hidden methods, as this biological fleet is part of a long-planned operation. Send out 20 spacecraft from each side to engage, Xiao Zhong issued the combat order. The hangar doors of the mothership slowly opened, gradually deploying 20 small spacecraft on either side, ready for action. These spacecraft, primarily armed with laser weapons, also carried a small number of nuclear bombs. Explosive weapons are not very effective in space due to the absence of air. Laser weapons are the most convenient and practical. Commander Xiao, what tactics should we use? Zhang Xiyuan asked excitedly, rubbing his hands. Xiao Zhong waved his hand. Adapt and respond. Zhang Xiyuan instantly cheered. So there are no tactics? I like it. Yang Tianqi. Let's see whose team is stronger, yours or ours. Yang Tianqi snorted. Of course, Team 1 is better than Team 2. Commander Xiao, give the order. I guarantee we'll leave no trace of them. The group of young people was already bursting with excitement. Since the Titans on Earth were wiped out, they had been conducting simulated training. This was their first real battle against the Titans, and they couldn't contain their excitement. Xiao Zhong poured cold water on their enthusiasm. Calm down. Your task is to uncover their strengths and weaknesses to find out their true capabilities. If there's any danger, retreat immediately. Our main mission is not to intercept these biological ships, but to deal with the Titans. Oh, I see. Zhang Xiyuan instantly deflated. Xiao Zhong added, by the way, you can only use 1/3 of the ship's capabilities, including offensive weapons. Zhang Xiyuan became even more frustrated. How are we supposed to fight like this? It's not satisfying at all. Yang Tianqi scolded. You need to realize this isn't the time for satisfaction. If you want to enjoy, let's go to Titan and have some real fun. We must not reveal our trump card to the Titan aliens. Otherwise, by the time we arrive at Titan in a year and a half, they might have developed targeted weapons. Xiao Zhong smiled and said, that's right, we can't show all our cards. Let's set off. The number of enemies we take down isn't important. What matters is that you protect yourselves. Yes, yes, the two responded. The 40 small space warships emitted red light from their rear, indicating nuclear acceleration. Soon, they flew towards the interception point at a noticeably faster speed. In space, as long as propulsion is continuously increased, speed can keep rising. However, after reaching a certain limit, the energy required becomes astonishingly high. And the current technology cannot support the engine, which could overheat and malfunction. Additionally, if they go too fast, sudden stops or turns will require even more energy, which could again severely damage the engine. Therefore, when these small warships reached double the speed of the mothership, they stopped accelerating, and the red light behind them vanished. Another factor limiting flight speed is space debris. Some of it is junk, while others are small celestial bodies. If they cannot dodge in time, a collision could lead to catastrophic destruction. All these factors restrict the speed of the space warships. When Zhang Xiyuan saw the biological warships, he couldn't help but gasp. This time, the Titan aliens were really serious. Although there were 1,000 space warships, they surprisingly also had motherships. Moreover, there were quite a few of them. Over 100 in total. These motherships varied greatly in appearance. The leading mothership resembled a dragonfly. Its tail suddenly broke apart and transformed into several smaller ships, flying towards Zhang Xiyuan and his team. Behind these small ships, more motherships began dispatching their own smaller vessels, appearing like countless stars in the sky. Oh no, we've stirred up a hornet's nest. Once they realized the situation, they immediately returned to their positions. Yang Tianqi exclaimed and issued combat orders. A fierce battle quickly unfolded. The advantage of human warships lay in their long-range laser weapons. All 40 space warships locked onto their targets and began attacking. In space, the superiority of laser weapons was evident, especially against the large biological warships, which were hard to maneuver. A single laser could maintain a precise strike. However, the smaller ships posed more of a challenge, as they could change direction easily and were harder to lock onto with lasers. The biggest drawback of human weapons was that it took several seconds to destroy the enemy, a limitation that current technology could not overcome. The battle in the sky was dazzling but silent. Everything was eerily quiet. The lasers fired by the 40 space warships intertwined in a deadly web in space. Under this laser network, several massive biological warships were clearly damaged, and some were even destroyed. Zhang Xiyuan piloted a warship that had just destroyed a large biological battleship. He immediately activated the reverse nuclear energy device to slow down. The advantage of laser weapons is their range, so he needed to maintain long-range attacks. The other spacecraft did the same. They quickly decelerated and dispersed, attacking the biological battleship from multiple angles. This allowed humanity to fully exploit their advantages. Many biological battleships visibly lost vitality, having been hit in vital areas by lasers, resulting in the death of these organisms. Some were directly torn apart by lasers, with severed limbs floating in space, turning into space debris. However, the Titan beings clearly had adaptive capabilities. They quickly scattered, with thousands of biological battleships separating and covering the entire battlefield. This made it difficult for human warships to leverage their range advantage, and the battle began to stagnate. Nevertheless, the human warships still held an advantage. Zhang Xiyuan maneuvered the ship toward the periphery, striving to maintain a zone free of biological battleships nearby. The laser operators locked onto individual targets and continuously fired. One biological battleship after another was destroyed. Suddenly, the biological battleships changed tactics, retreating to regroup around their mothership, forming a massive fleet. At the same time, several large organisms flew around the fleet. These organisms began to expand, each covering several dozen kilometers in area. They were clearly similar to the solar umbrellas that had previously lingered at the Lagrange point. These solar umbrellas provided protection for the entire biological fleet. MD, take down those solar umbrellas. Zhang Xiyuan called to the other fleets, initiating an attack on the solar umbrellas. However, the structure of these biological entities was somewhat special. They could reflect a significant portion of the laser, and their bodies seemed capable of conducting heat. The lasers did not harm their bodies at all. Damn, The Titan beings really have new methods, Zhang Xiyuan thought. He concentrated 20 warships and unleashed a barrage of laser fire at the solar umbrellas. The energy from the 20 lasers clearly had an effect, burning a massive hole in the solar umbrella. However, compared to the enormous size of the solar umbrella, this hole was negligible. For a moment, they found it impossible to break through this defense line. Yang Tianqi, do you have any ideas? Zhang Xiyuan said, exasperated. Yang Tianqi chuckled. If you give up, I'll teach you. Zhang Xiyuan cursed. What time is it? Fine, consider it that you've killed 100 more than us. Alright, it's simple. Shoot at the center of the solar umbrella. That's where its brain is located, Yang Tianqi advised. Zhang Xiyuan immediately slapped his forehead. Such a simple solution, yet he hadn't thought of it, effectively handing Yang Tianqi 100 kills. An hour later, the solar umbrellas surrounding the biological fleet were destroyed by lasers, their remains floating in space, turning into a pile of debris. Now, they would see how the biological beings would evade. Zhang Xiyuan, driven by anger, manipulated the space battleship to close in on the biological fleet. Other space battleships also moved closer, seizing the opportunity to launch a fierce attack on the biological fleet. Suddenly, Zhang Xiyuan shouted, "Everyone, turn and evade." He restarted the nuclear propulsion system, using laser guidance to change direction at the maximum angle. Zhang Xiyuan's reaction was the quickest. Others were momentarily stunned and only realized their situation after hearing his warning. Everyone hurriedly activated their nuclear propulsion systems and began to turn. This was because countless small biological entities emerged from the biological warship group, moving at incredible speeds. Most of these entities likely utilized the powerful thrust of the biological mothership to aim directly at their space battleships and flew towards them at high speed. This was the tactic of the biological warships. They actually used small biological subships as projectiles, launching them directly. Firing lasers at these subships was ineffective. While lasers could kill them, they could not stop their impact. This forced everyone into a frantic scramble to evade. In space, there is no air resistance, so acceleration is easy. However, changing direction, especially at a large angle, is quite difficult. The nuclear propulsion system required a bit of startup time, and that slight delay was critical, as the biological subships were approaching at high speed. A few of the leading space battleships couldn't evade in time and were struck by the biological subships, shattering upon impact. Fortunately, the cockpits were independently designed, so although the hulls were breached, the crew in the cockpits remained safe unless directly hit. Zhang Xiyuan was at the forefront, and thanks to his quick reaction, he maneuvered the space battleship at the maximum angle and narrowly avoided disaster. However, his companions weren't as fortunate. 4 or 5 battleships following him couldn't turn in time and were hit by the biological entities. The space was suddenly filled with countless fragments and wreckage of space battleships. In particular, 2 battleships were struck directly in their cockpits, killing the pilots instantly due to exposure to the vacuum of space, which caused their blood vessels to burst from the lack of atmospheric pressure. The surviving pilots in intact cockpits quickly pressed their escape devices, transforming their seats into escape pods that ejected them, awaiting rescue. Amid the chaos, over a dozen of the 40 space battleships were destroyed, and 4 or 5 more were damaged, having humanity's combat strength. Zhang Xiyuan, stop thinking about attacking. First, save the people. Once everyone is rescued, we will withdraw. Yang Tianqi, more composed and calm than Zhang Xiyuan, quickly analyzed the current situation. Zhang Xiyuan had indeed planned to lead the remaining space battleships in retaliation. But Xiao Zhong had said that their most important goal was not to kill the enemy, but to protect themselves and uncover the details of the Titan aliens. Especially the pilots in the escape pods needed to be rescued as soon as possible. The escape pods have limited oxygen, and they lack sufficient propulsion. If we don't conduct a rescue now, these escape pods will soon vanish into the vastness of space, making it difficult to retrieve them. Alright, each team, start rescuing people. The rest will provide cover. Zhang Xiyuan issued the command. The biological battleships continued their relentless attack, but this time everyone was on alert and had begun lateral movements, significantly reducing the chances of being hit by the smaller biological entities. All personnel have been rescued, but we lost 10 pilots and gunners, reported the search and rescue team. A heavy silence fell over everyone. Each space battleship requires 2 people, a pilot and a gunner. Losing 10 skilled individuals at once is a significant blow. These were valuable assets cultivated through hard work. This left Zhang Xiyuan and Yang Tianqi feeling quite dejected. Zhang Xiyuan, Yang Tianqi, return the rescued personnel. Maintain a safe distance for observation. I will send 30 more battleships to support you. Learn from this lesson. Remember, your goal is not to annihilate the enemy, but to ascertain their capabilities, came the voice of Xiao Zhong over the communicator. Understood. Zhang Xiyuan maneuvered the space battleship, moving closer to the biological battleships. Yang Tianqi, I will circle around to the back and check if their defenses have any weaknesses. You provide cover in front. Zhang Xiyuan was filled with anger, yet remained calm. Anger does not equate to recklessness, especially for Zhang Xiyuan. The angrier he was, the calmer he became. This was his strength. He broke away from the main force and flanked the biological battleships from the outside. It was a massive fleet with various shapes. However, Zhang Xiyuan quickly discerned the characteristics of this biological fleet. In the front were mostly smaller biological battleships, while the few large ones were all motherships. They had different methods of launching biological subships. Yet, in the rear, there were 3 even larger biological battleships. These 3 massive ships were clearly distinct from the others. Arranged in a triangular formation at the core of the fleet, surrounded by numerous other biological battleships for protection. This was evidently the core command ship of the biological fleet. Commander Xiao, I have located the command ships of the Titan aliens. There are 3 of them, and they are massive, about 10 times larger than your command ship. Zhang Xiyuan reported. Oh, launch a nuclear missile attack, Xiao Zhong decisively commanded. Without hesitation, Zhang Xiyuan targeted the largest command ship in the center and pressed the button. A missile propelled by liquid fuel shot out, aimed directly at the command ship. The Titan aliens quickly detected the nuclear missile, and a swarm of smaller biological entities was ejected, forming a network to intercept it. A flash of light erupted as the nuclear missile collided with a group of smaller entities, resulting in a violent explosion. In space, while the power of a nuclear missile is substantial, it does not create shockwaves and will not damage surrounding objects. Although the explosion occurred very close to the biological command ship, it did not cause any harm to it. Zhang Xiyuan launched a laser from a distance. While the power of the laser diminishes due to the dispersion of the focus at extreme distances, given enough time, it can still inflict significant damage. Zhang Xiyuan wanted to test what kind of damage the laser could do to this massive biological entity. However, he soon had to abandon this attempt, as the biological command ship surprisingly ejected an object that blocked the laser's path. Moreover, this object was clearly not biological. It resembled a high-density celestial body, and the laser had no effect upon striking it. Seeing hundreds of small biological entities flying towards him, Zhang Xiyuan immediately retreated. His objective had already been achieved. Meanwhile, in front of the biological fleet, Yang Tianxi led the aerial battleships in continuous harassment of the biological fleet. The biological subships evidently had limited energy. After a series of maneuvers and accelerations lasting over 10 minutes, they had to return to the mothership for energy replenishment. Analysis of the energy residues captured from space revealed that they used a mixture of methane and oxygen for propulsion. Methane is the most abundant liquid resource on Titan, making it an ideal energy source for propulsion. After several hours of sustained combat, the mothership ran low on energy and moved back to the command ship for replenishment. Soon, the mothership returned to the front lines, once again leading its subships into battle. The most troubling issue for Yang Tianxi was that after the skirmishes, the adaptability of those biological subships had increased significantly, enhancing their directional control capabilities. Additionally, these biological subships could now attack the aerial battleships. Each of these subships was essentially a biological entity propelled by methane, simultaneously ejecting a solid substance. This solid substance, upon striking an aerial battleship, would rapidly liquefy and possess strong corrosive properties, quickly melting a hole in the battleship. 3 or 4 aerial battleships had already been destroyed by these subships. The battle began to reach a stalemate. Although humans held an absolute advantage, having destroyed a large number of biological subships and 2 biological motherships, the sheer number of the biological fleet meant that humans could not sustain such losses indefinitely. Commander Xiao insisted that a new strategy was needed. Expressing concern about the current situation, Yang Tianxi remarked, "You all continue the attack. I have preparations underway here. Just wait and see." Xiao Zhong's voice was calm and confident. Everyone trusted Xiao Zhong. His confidence suggested that there must be a way for humans to deal with this enormous biological fleet. Indeed, Xiao Zhong had a plan to counter this space fleet. He had gathered enough information from Zhang Xiyuan to understand the composition of the biological fleet. Chapter 584, Next Target. Titan. The 3 massive biological command ships were warships of the Titans, filled with liquid methane, in which the Titans also lived. The outer fleet consists of ordinary biological warships, all coordinated by these 3 command ships. Therefore, if these 3 command ships are destroyed, the entire fleet will collapse. The energy source used by the fleet is methane. They carry an enormous amount of methane, providing a continuous energy supply to the subships and motherships. However, this also reveals a weakness. The 3 motherships themselves are mobile bombs. Once detonated, they can trigger a chain reaction, completely destroying the entire warship. With the separation complete, acceleration can begin. Xiaoling's hands were swiftly operating the controls. A massive warship detached from the command ship and slowly moved away. This was an attack ship, exhibiting excellent acceleration capabilities, and its ability to maneuver in space was top-notch. The biggest drawback of this attack ship was its rapid energy consumption, making it unsuitable for long-distance flight. Xiao Zhong and his group were aboard this attack ship. After confirming that they had detached from the command mother ship, he issued the command, accelerate. The nuclear propulsion system began to activate, and a red glow rose from the rear. The attack ship started to accelerate, quickly surpassing the 3 mother ships, flying forward accompanied by 10 other space warships. This attack ship was unique. Its upper half consisted of the cockpit and propulsion chamber, while the lower half was a massive bomb. Behind the bomb was a powerful thruster. Half an hour later, Xiaoling reminded, "We have arrived at the target area." Xiao Zhong looked down and spotted a massive biological warship flying towards Earth in the distant space. Surrounding this enormous biological warship, a battle was ongoing. Yang Tianqi and Zhang Xiyuan were engaging in a containment battle. "Ammunition ready, we accelerate," Xiao Zhong commanded. The red glow at the rear of the attack ship became even brighter, indicating that the power had reached its peak. The attack ship, propelled by acceleration, was gaining speed rapidly. "Ammunition is ready and precisely targeted," Xiao Ling continued to report. Xiao Zhong checked the speed, which had reached its limit. Launch. A loud roar echoed through the cabin, and the previously speeding attack ship suddenly began to decelerate. A massive bomb shot out at high speed. The entire attack ship shook violently, as if being pulled by a tremendous force. The attack ship was using the bomb's thrust to brake rapidly in midair. This bomb was specially designed, carrying a large amount of concentrated oxygen. Its size was equivalent to that of a building. If this enormous bomb struck the command ship, it could detonate the methane, resulting in a massive explosion. The biological command ship seemed to have detected the bomb, releasing many small biological subships to intercept it ahead. However, the oxygen bomb was incredibly fast, nearly doubling its speed on top of the attack ship's initial velocity, now reaching the speed limit achievable by current human technology. Several biological subships were barely blocking the way ahead, but when they collided with the oxygen bomb, they were pushed back towards the biological command ship. The entire cosmic battlefield witnessed this scene, halting their ongoing battles to gaze at the rapidly speeding oxygen bomb. Zhang Xiyuan exclaimed, "Wow, now that's a bomb." Time seemed to freeze. Minutes later, the bomb flew into the largest biological command ship. Time appeared to solidify once more, although it was merely a second. The whole world felt as if it had come to a standstill, and then an explosion erupted inside the biological command ship, followed by a series of explosions. The power of the blast was immense. Even the 2 other biological battleships, not too far from the command ship, were engulfed by the massive flames and subsequently experienced chain reactions of explosions. Though there was no sound, the visual effect was still astonishing. Nearby biological battleships were completely enveloped in flames. Measurements indicated that the temperature at the center of the explosion exceeded several thousand degrees. The biological battleships closest to the explosion melted, while many others at a slightly greater distance clearly lost their lives. The outer biological battleships lost their command and instinctively began to flee, trying to escape the enormous explosion. In an instant, the entire space was filled with fleeing biological entities. "Wow, that was easy," Zhang Xiyuan marveled again. Xiao Zhong calmly remarked, "We have been preparing for 5 to 6 years. If we can't easily eliminate this biological fleet, how can humanity win?" Zhang Xiyuan replied somewhat dejectedly, "Then our earlier probe was a waste." However, Yang Tianqi excitedly said, "Without our reconnaissance, how could the launch have gone so smoothly just now?" Xiao Zhong stated, "Yang Tianqi is right. Thanks to your probing, I dared to deliver this fatal blow. After all, we only have this one giant bomb." Xiao Zhong issued the command, "All subships, return. Our current target is Titan, on Earth." A small boy was happily playing with his friends outside. This boy was clearly a leader among them. Despite being the same age, he was taller than the others. The group of children all obediently followed his arrangements. This boy was a gift from the Titan people to Xiao Zhong. After DNA testing, it was confirmed that he was created using Xiao Zhong's genes. This could be considered a genetically modified clone of Xiao Zhong. Ethically speaking, he was not Xiao Zhong's child, but rather another version of him. This left Xiao Zhong somewhat troubled. Was this child his son, his brother, or Xiao Zhong number 2? However, for Jian, everything was simple. This was little Xiao Zhong, also known as Xiao Zhong's son, thus his own child. Furthermore, the biological team had tested the child's genes and found no abnormalities. Although human genetic technology was relatively backward, any anomalies should still be detectable. If there are any other specific genes that have been implanted, they can still be easily detected through genetic comparison. However, the current results confirm that this child has undergone some genetic modifications. Moreover, this modification technique has greatly inspired biologists. They have conducted experiments on some animals using similar techniques and found that the modified genes significantly improve the animal's functions and lifespans. Particularly, their disease resistance has been notably enhanced, virtually eliminating the possibility of many infections. Chapter 585. A genius standing out from the current situation. It appears that no genetic traps have been set by the extraterrestrials in the body of the child. Mom, I don't want to play anymore, said Xiao Jian'er as she ran in, pouting. Xiao Jian'er is the name of the child. Jian'er, why don't you want to play? Jian gently asked. They are too stupid. No matter how I teach them, they just can't learn, Xiao Jian'er replied gloomily. Jian felt a bit troubled. Since childhood, Xiao Jian'er has had a significantly higher intelligence than average. On one hand, Xiao Zhong is a prodigy himself, and on the other hand, Xiao Zhong has mentioned that Xiao Jian'er's intelligence surpasses his own. However, Xiao Zhong is concerned that his identity may affect how people perceive him. So he has always arranged for Xiao Jian'er to attend a regular school and has not allowed him to skip grades. He also deliberately concealed all of Xiao Jian'er's exceptional qualities, agreeing that he should only play with peers of the same age. This has clearly suppressed Xiao Jian'er's nature and made him quite unhappy. No matter what I say, they don't understand. They are so old. Yet when I explain the mysteries of mathematics to them, they just can't grasp it, Xiao Jian'er pouted. Jian felt a bit awkward, not to mention those children. She herself couldn't comprehend what the child was talking about. It was content from advanced mathematics, which she had learned but had mostly forgotten, leaving her unable to understand the child's thoughts. Mom, I'm so bored, Xiao Jian'er kicked a toy on the ground, wondering why such childish toys were still here. Jian silently picked up the toy. These toys were the favorites of children his age. So Xiao Zhong had specially placed them at home to create an atmosphere where their child seemed no different from others. However, Xiao Jian'er clearly did not appreciate that. Seeing Xiao Jian'er's gloomy expression, Jian finally said, Child, how about I send you to an elite university? Xiao Jian'er immediately became excited, rushing over to hug Jian and joyfully jumping. That's great. That's great. I'm going to university. In that moment, Xiao Jian'er revealed his true childlike nature. Yet Jian felt a bit anxious inside. This was because Xiao Zhong strongly opposed sending Xiao Jian'er to an elite university. He hoped that Xiao Jian'er could live a more ordinary life, preferably one that is stable and secure. After all, this was a genetically modified embryo, and Xiao Zhong did not want to attract attention. However, his forceful suppression of Xiao Jian'er's abilities only made the child very unhappy. As a mother, Jian naturally wished for her child to be happy. Now, Xiao Zhong has led the space fleet to Titan, and the round trip will take at least 3 years. Therefore, Jian has decided to send her child to an elite university, as only the education at such an institution can keep up with Xiao Jian'er's learning pace. The elite university is currently the highest institution of learning for humanity, gathering the most outstanding talents from around the world. What attracted Jian the most, and what prompted her decision to send Xiao Jian'er there, was the existence of a gifted youth class. The class has nearly 100 students. Jian vaguely heard Xiao Zhong mention that these gifted children are naturally conceived. As for natural conception, Jian knows a little about it. It relates to quantum entanglement and the principles of cosmic convergence from other parallel universes. It is said that the parents of these children are from high IQ demographics with excellent genes. Thus, these children exhibit signs of genius from birth. In such a gifted youth class, Xiao Jian'er would not feel out of place anymore. Does Xiao Zhong agree with this? Principal Hu Wenji asked Xiao Jian'er with some curiosity, who had long known about Xiao Jian'er's abilities and had approached Xiao Zhong several times to request her entry into the elite university's youth class, but was always refused. Xiao Jian'er resembles Xiao Zhong quite a bit. It seems that the Titans did not make any adjustments to physical appearance, perhaps believing that this genetic trait is insignificant for humans. After all, with their octopus-like aesthetic, they cannot distinguish who is handsome or ugly. No need. He has important matters to attend to and cannot be distracted by this, Jian said somewhat anxiously. As the commander of humanity, Jian was still worried when she said this. However, Hu Wenji excitedly stroked his beard and said, That's good. I've always said the child should come to our school. Hu Wenji had previously been the principal of a well-known university. Before the outbreak of the Starry Sky Behemoth, he was conducting scientific research in an underground nuclear base and fortunately escaped disaster. He has always wanted to pass on all human scientific heritage. So seeing a genius like Xiao Jian'er being forced to attend a regular elementary school made him very uncomfortable. However, Xiao Zhong is a stubborn person and the commander of humanity, so there was nothing he could do. Now, with Jian as a good mother, everything is no longer a problem. Let's first conduct an IQ test for the child, Hu Wenji said. Just half an hour later, Xiao Jian'er had completed all the IQ test questions, and Hu Wenji stared at the results in shock for quite some time. Principal, what is Jian'er's IQ? Is it qualified? Jian asked in confusion. Qualified? Qualified? It's simply too qualified. An IQ of 300. As far as I know, in human history, only one person has ever reached an IQ of 300, Hu Wenji murmured, noting that this child seems to have not yet tapped into all of their potential and appears to have room for improvement. However, Jian's focus was not on this. Can Jian'er go to school? Yes, absolutely, Hu Wenji shook his head. I feel like we have a superstar rising. A year and a half later, the spacecraft has arrived in the Saturn system. Xiao Zhong is ready to welcome a great battle. Around Titan, there are densely packed biological warships, as numerous as the stars in the sky. Wow, is this a wolfpack tactic? Zhang Xiyuan exclaimed. Xiao Zhong smiled and said, as I expected, you notice that among all the biological warships, there is only one command ship. Yes, I noticed that too. Why is that? Xiao Ling asked curiously. Xiao Zhong replied, this aligns with my hypothesis. The Titan people do not have suitable technology to propel large biological entities into space. Unlike us, they cannot rely on technological power to send objects from their planet into space. They can create biological entities in space. But these entities need to obtain methane from Titan as fuel. The transportation of methane requires those small biological entities to load methane from the surface of Titan, then escape the planet's gravity and atmosphere to reach space. Chapter 586. The fiercest attack on Titan. This greatly limits their transportation capacity. Therefore, they can create many biological entities in space, but the primary energy source for these entities is methane. The command ship serves both as a transport vessel for methane and as a space warship for the Titan people. After a year and a half of effort, they have managed to prepare only one command ship, which reflects their true strength. Xiao Zhong issued combat orders, and all subships set off. However, there is no need to confront the opponent head-on. We only need to deplete their energy. 150 spacecraft separated from 3 motherships, spreading out to approach Titan from various angles. Xiao Zhong led the command ship toward the vicinity of the Saturn rings. He had an important task, to collect large fragments within the Saturn rings. These fragments contain a significant amount of ice and oxides. This will be the best means to attack Titan. Scientists devised a plan to deal with the Titan people. Earth is too far from Titan, even with current technology. It would take a year and a half to reach. Although humans have established a lunar spaceport, it is also challenging to carry a large number of weapons to attack Titan. Therefore, using local materials to create bombs on site is the best approach. There are a large number of fragments in the Saturn rings, 95 of which are composed of ice. Under intense chemical reactions, ice can be decomposed into oxygen and hydrogen. Utilizing this property, the command ship uses nuclear energy to convert large amounts of fragments into oxygen and create oxygen bombs. At the same time, in the central part of the Saturn rings, there are fragments rich in high oxides. These fragments can decompose to release a large amount of oxygen under high temperatures. The command ship collects these fragments and creates a type of natural bomb, wrapped in insulating materials and equipped with a nuclear bomb. It can cause a violent explosion when deployed on Titan. The explosion this time was more powerful and intense than the last one conducted by Yang Liwei and his team. Moreover, there are abundant resources in the rings of Saturn. As long as space is controlled, continuous attacks on Titan can be launched. Additionally, during their first exploration, Yang Liwei and his team discovered nuclear energy tritium on a small moon, which is equivalent to humans having access to a large amount of nuclear energy. With sufficient energy and materials, Xiao Zhong's fleet can continuously bombard Titan. Although each bombardment may not cause devastating damage, the relentless attacks are unbearable for the inhabitants of Titan. As long as space dominance is secured, humanity will be in an invulnerable position. Commander Xiao, you were right. The bioships on Titan indeed lack energy. After several days of combat, they have now retreated. They only strike occasionally when we approach, Zhang Xiyuan said excitedly. Moreover, we have found their small biological entities that transport energy. They are indeed using command ships for energy transport and distribution. Should we launch a decisive strike against this command ship? Xiao Zhong finally felt a weight lifted off his shoulders. Everything was nearing its conclusion. Destroying this command ship would mean the Titan inhabitants would lose their space dominance and would only be passively attacked. The bio-warships they manufactured require energy, and their technological capabilities cannot transport much energy into space. This illustrates the difference between genetic civilizations and technological civilizations. All right, concentrate our forces and take down the command ship. Our collection efforts have concluded, and we will initiate the first bombardment on Titan in a week, Xiao Zhong ordered. In the skies above Titan, 50 space warships began their assault on the command ship. Each warship carried a nuclear bomb. 50 nuclear bombs flew toward the biological command ship from all directions, creating a spectacular scene. Although several small biosubships emerged to intercept, they could not stop this many nuclear bombs. At least 4 or 5 nuclear bombs hit the command ship. The command ship erupted in a burst of fire, disintegrating in space into countless fragments scattered across the cosmos. The space warships that completed their mission did not linger in battle and retreated immediately. A week later, Xiao Zhong led 3 command ships to the skies above Titan. During this week, the bio-warships had largely been eliminated by humanity. Only the human fleet remained in the skies of Titan. The bio-subships, having consumed most of their energy, returned to the mothership one after another, as their missions were basically completed. The most important tasks now rested on the three motherships. On the command ship, Xiao Zhong gazed at the beautiful planet, feeling a mix of excitement and emptiness. Humanity's greatest enemy was the Titan inhabitants, but they were about to deliver a devastating blow. Once the Titan inhabitants were eradicated, humanity would once again be left in solitude. In the vast universe, humanity would become lonely again. Due to this lesson, humanity would definitely refrain from proactively contacting extraterrestrial civilizations in the future. This inevitably means that humanity will remain isolated until the world is destroyed. The world will return to its previous state, and the calm life will return. What are you thinking about? Xiaoling shot a glance at Xiao Zhong and asked. Xiao Zhong had been staring at the planet for a long time, which prompted the question. Shaking his head, Xiao Zhong pulled his thoughts back. All right, prepare to attack. Let us end our disputes with the Titanians. Zhang Xiyuan floated over, found a spot to sit, and cheerfully said, the gravity zone is too disorienting. It's much more thrilling to watch from here. Others likely shared the same sentiment, as they all squeezed out of the gravity zone to the command area, eager to witness the bombardment of Titan. Ever since the outbreak of the starry armored beasts, humanity had finally reached the moment for retaliation, and it would be a devastating counterattack. Continuous bombardment of Titan would cause significant climate changes on the planet. This would lead to an increase in temperature, which would be the most lethal blow to the Titanian people. Begin the attack. Xiao Zhong no longer hesitated and pressed the launch button. A massive object wrapped in thermal insulation began to fall towards Titan under the propulsion of nuclear energy. Inside this insulated object were only two things: a celestial body rich in oxides and a large amount of oxygen. At the center was a nuclear bomb. There were a total of 3 such bombs, all currently descending towards Titan. All eyes were fixed on these enormous artificial objects. Chapter 587. The opposition on Titan. These artificial oxygen bombs were as massive as small mountains. As they entered Titan's atmosphere, they emitted a dazzling red light, resembling falling meteors. However, the thermal insulation effectively protected the internal temperature, preventing them from exploding prematurely. The 3 bombs struck the icy shell of Titan, creating a hole in the thick ice layer and plunging into the methane ocean. Although the 3 bombs were initially close together, they began to disperse in different directions once they entered the atmosphere. The 3 bombs started to detonate. After the nuclear bomb at the center exploded, it caused the decomposition of oxides, releasing a large amount of oxygen in an instant. This oxygen then reacted violently with methane, resulting in a series of explosions. While the description is slow, these reactions occurred in a split second. 3 red bubbles appeared on Titan, a result of the explosions. These bubbles grew larger, and to Xiao Zhong and the others, they seemed almost as big as a fist. In terms of area, they likely spanned several hundred kilometers. After the fireworks, let us make a few more, Zhang Xiyuan said eagerly. These 3 explosions would clearly not deal a fatal blow to the Titan people, which explained Zhang Xiyuan's impatience. Don't rush, let us see how the Titan people react, Xiao Zhong replied. Given such a fierce attack, the Titan people could not possibly remain unresponsive. Sure enough, half an hour later, Xiao Ling received a message from the Titan people. Earthlings, we request negotiations. Negotiating? No way, we won't even accept surrender. Zhang Xiyuan cursed. They have nearly destroyed all of humanity on Earth. If we don't show them some strength, then I'm not a human. Xiao Ling looked at Xiao Zhong, curious about his response. Xiao Zhong just smiled and said, send it out just like Zhang Xiyuan said. Xiao Ling raised an eyebrow at Xiao Zhong, then glanced at Zhang Xiyuan. Are we really sending it like this? Yes, send it all, including the insults, Xiao Zhong replied. A few minutes later, the Titan beings sent another message. Dear Earthlings, the leader of the Titan requests a dialogue. Xiao Zhong then smiled. Now this is the attitude we should have. Pass the order down, let their leader come to us. Really going to talk? Zhang Xiyuan exclaimed uncomfortably. The group of pilots behind him also felt uneasy. After all, humanity had suffered immensely at the hands of the Titan beings. It felt wrong to just negotiate. At the very least, they should eliminate a significant portion of the Titans to feel better. Xiao Zhong turned to the large group behind him and said, think carefully about how to torment the leader of the Titans. Initially uncomfortable, the crowd suddenly became excited, brainstorming ways to torture the Titan leader. Half an hour later, an object began to ascend from Titan and slowly approached the human command ship. A space vessel moved closer to the biological spaceship, and soon, a fish-shaped shield emerged from the biological craft, entering the space vessel and then heading towards the mothership nearby. Yang Tianqi was on this mothership, responsible for dealing with the Titan leader. Hey, the Titan leader has arrived. Have you all figured out how to deal with this guy? Xiao Zhong asked with a smile. Zhang Xiyuan nodded. We unanimously agree to dismember this Titan and turn it into a feast. Xiao Zhong shook his head. Is this really what you think? He looked around at the crowd. Everyone nodded, but it was clear they didn't truly expect to follow through on this suggestion. Obviously, such inhumane acts could be talked about. But if it came to doing it, Xiao Zhong probably wouldn't agree. Alright, surprisingly, Xiao Zhong agreed. Remember your words, you want to eat the Titan. He picked up the communicator and addressed Yang Tianqi, do as everyone says. The group exchanged glances, looking anxious. If they really cooked this creature, they wouldn't be able to eat it. After all, it was a sentient being. Moreover, being a non-carbon-based life form, who knew what would happen if they consumed it? Hey, Commander Xiao, we were just joking. Just kill it, dismember it, but skip the cooking part, Zhang Xiyuan quickly pleaded. Xiao Zhong looked at the others, who nodded hurriedly. Only then did Xiao Zhong say, Yang Tianqi, did you hear? Kill the Titan leader, chop it into 8 pieces, and send the footage to the Titans. This time, the Titans remained silent for a long while before finally sending another message. Dear Earthlings, the Titans sincerely hope to negotiate. We have a piece of information concerning your survival. Xiao Zhong snorted coldly. I knew they would pull these tricks. Tell them to send their true highest leader and the opposition leader, otherwise, we will launch another attack. Opposition? Xiaoling couldn't help but ask after sending the message. Yes, Xiao Zhong replied in a low voice. I discovered a hidden message in the embryo shell they sent me. After decrypting it, I found it was information sent by the Titans' opposition, hoping to talk with us. They claim to have important information to share. So they have internal dissent as well. Xiaoling exclaimed. Xiao Zhong sighed. Where there are people, there are factions. Even highly intelligent beings like the Titans will have internal dissent. From the information, I learned that the opposition advocates for peace, while those in power are the ones instigating war. Xiao Zhong shifted the topic. Of course, no one knows the specifics. Zhang Xiyuan couldn't help but ask. How do you know the one we just killed wasn't their leader? Xiao Zhong glanced at Zhang Xiyuan. If you were the leader, would you come to negotiate like this? Zhang Xiyuan thought for a moment and then shook his head. Xiao Zhong suddenly smiled. If it really were the leader, then killing them would be just fine. It would also serve as a warning to the Titans. Moreover, once the leader is dead, their society will inevitably fall into chaos. Just like in a certain past conflict. This would only benefit us, not harm us. 2 shield-like structures resembling drifting fish were placed in the gravity zone. Yang Tianqi walked in and glanced at the 2 Titans. He had seen dead Titans before, but this was his first encounter with living ones. These were 2 octopus-like beings. However, even through the transparent shields, Yang Tianqi could tell that the one on the left was male and exuded a certain authority typical of higher-ups. The one on the right was female, looking rather resilient, likely the so-called opposition leader. Chapter 588, The Secrets of the Invasion of Earth. Yang Tianqi clapped his hands, and an officer entered, taking the opposition leader to another room, leaving only the Titans' leader behind. I protest. You cannot listen to that woman's nonsense, the Titans' leader said angrily. Its octopus-like appearance making its movements seem somewhat comical. Speak. What news do you have to tell us humans? Yang Tianqi said. The Titans' leader angrily replied, I want to speak with your commander. Yang Tianqi pointed to himself. I am he. You are not. Yang Tianqi understood that the Titans on Earth had relayed Xiao Zhong's information to this leader. However, he chose to ignore it. If you want to negotiate, you can talk to me. Otherwise, I will kill you. And we will also destroy your planet. The Titans' leader fell silent for a moment, and then said, If you kill me and destroy our planet, you Earthlings will die too. Why? Yang Tianqi pressed. He sensed that there was more to the Titanian's words. I will only talk to your leader. This Titanian leader was very stubborn. Yang Tianqi felt somewhat angry. It was clear that the Titanian leader did not take him seriously. If you won't speak, I will go talk to that woman. I believe she would be very willing to talk to me. At this, the Titanian leader finally couldn't sit still any longer and softened. Fine, let's talk. I will tell you a piece of information, but in return, you must cease your attacks on Titan. Furthermore, our 2 civilizations will coexist peacefully in the future. The Titanian leader stated. Yang Tianqi scoffed. Aren't you afraid that once we get the information, we will bomb Titan? The Titanian leader lifted its head. You need our help. Yang Tianqi was somewhat unsure. He stood up, preparing to inform Xiao Zhong. After all, such a significant matter could not be decided alone. Before he could speak, Xiao Zhong walked in. Xiao Zhong sat down in front of the Titanian leader, staring at this arrogant Titanian, and said, I am the leader of humanity. I have already spoken with your opponent. Now, I give you a chance. Either you tell me everything you know, and I will judge who among you is telling the truth, and who is more sincere and thorough. A smile appeared on Xiao Zhong's lips. I will only cooperate with one of you. How you respond is up to you. Yang Tianqi silently praised Xiao Zhong. This move forced the Titanian leader to reveal everything it knew. Sure enough, after a moment of anger, the Titanian leader finally said, Respected human commander, collaborating with that woman will not benefit you. Less than 1/3 of the Titanian people support her. Xiao Zhong casually replied, I can eliminate the remaining 2/3. This statement was quite domineering, and Xiao Zhong's firm tone made the Titanian leader realize that this was indeed a possibility. The Titanian leader finally softened. It understood that Xiao Zhong could back up his words with action. All right, I will speak. The Titanian leader finally began. We request to coexist peacefully with you and stop the war. As compensation and in return, we will help you improve human genetics, making you humans more perfect. At the same time, we should inform you that in the universe, there are other civilizations besides ours. The Titanian leader excitedly gestured within its shield. If you humans do not stop your foolish exploration of space, you will eventually be discovered by other advanced civilizations. And at that time, it will not only be you, we will be doomed as well. Xiao Zhong pondered for a moment and asked, is that the reason you initiated the attack on Earth? The Titanian leader sighed. Over 1,000 years ago, we discovered the existence of Earth civilization through Halley's Comet. However, at that time, you were not a threat. After all, your civilization level was very low, and you knew nothing about space. However, the speed of your civilization's development has far exceeded our expectations. You have even launched a probe into the Saturn system. We had to modify your information to conceal our traces. Yet, your actions are incredibly foolish. You have no idea how dangerous it is for you to expose your whereabouts. The leader of the Titans is once again furiously gesticulating within the shield, clearly an emotional individual. Countless civilizations lurk in the universe, some at terrifying levels of advancement. Your exploration of space poses a significant threat to the entire solar system. Therefore, we have devoted all our efforts to creating organisms that can deal with you. We learned your basic information from your probe and the messages you sent into the universe, and then spent over a decade creating the starry armored beasts. We sent the mother insect of the starry armored beasts to your planet to destroy your civilization and put an end to your foolish actions. At the same time, to ensure that no similar organisms exist on Earth, we began colonizing the planet, aiming to transform it into a frozen world similar to Titan. The Titan leader, somewhat confused, said, we have gone through countless simulations and improvements, and we are absolutely confident in eliminating you Earthlings. But why did we fail? He raised his head, a hint of madness in his eyes. Can you tell me why we failed? We have even destroyed most of your humanity, turning Earth into almost a plant planet. Yet, how did you few survivors manage to turn the tide and achieve victory? The Titan leader lowered his head, shaking it desperately in the liquid of the shield. I don't understand. I really don't. I still don't know where we lost. Xiao Zhong smiled faintly and said, you lost to the power of technology. The Titan leader shook his head. No. The power of our genetic civilization is more advanced than that of technological civilization, and we reached the peak of our genetic civilization hundreds of years ago. While your technological civilization is still in its infancy, you know nothing about your own structure. Xiao Zhong and Yang Tianqi exchanged glances, knowing that the Titan leader was correct. Humanity knows very little about itself. Chapter 589. The dangers of genetic modification. How can humans taste flavors? How is taste produced? How is smell produced? And so on. There are countless similar questions. There are also many incredible existences in biology, such as the Antarctic toothfish, which can produce a bait-like structure. There are many such organisms. Humans can be said to know very little about their own bodily structure, and they are completely ignorant of biological structures. Many diseases in the world still have unknown causes, often attributed to genetics or physical constitution. However, whether it is genetics or constitution, it is actually caused by bodily genes. Xiao Zhong looked at the ugly Titanian leader and shrugged, saying, we may be genetically behind you, but that doesn't stop us from destroying your civilization. The Titanian leader finally lowered his head. Dear Earthling, we will approach cooperation with humility. It will only benefit you, not harm you. We can enhance your genes, making you stronger. Xiao Zhong waved his hand, showing no interest in the Titanian's verbal promises. I have 2 questions for you, and you must answer honestly. Otherwise, I won't hesitate to destroy your entire planet. The Titanian leader suddenly bent his limbs and body. This is the gesture of submission from you Earthlings. I will answer you truthfully, Xiao Zhong said. First, since you have such an understanding of genetics, why haven't you modified and improved your own genes? This had always puzzled him. The alien beings created by the Titanians had superior physical conditions, capable of surviving in most environments in space. Yet, conversely, the Titanian bodies were so fragile, almost like those of Earthlings. They could not withstand environments without atmospheric pressure, nor could they handle even slightly higher atmospheric pressures. They also could not survive in high temperatures. Away from the methane oceans, they could die at any moment. This seemed very strange. The Titanian leader had clearly anticipated this question from Xiao Zhong and answered without much thought. We Titans are quite conservative, as you can tell from our attitude towards technology. Moreover, we Titans place great importance on ethics. Modifying ourselves violates our basic principles. This answer clearly dissatisfied Xiao Zhong. He frowned and asked, what is the purpose of giving me an improved embryo? Since you are unwilling to improve yourselves, why do you want to modify the genes of Earthlings? The Titanian leader replied, you do not have our fundamental principles. Modifying genes will only benefit you, not harm you. Xiao Zhong stood up and walked out of the cabin without saying a word. He was very dissatisfied with this answer. Yang Tianqi followed him and asked, "This guy is not convincing at all." Xiao Zhong nodded. "He is lying. Let's ask the opposition." Entering the chamber where the opposition leader was held, Xiao Zhong glanced at the leader inside the shield, who was also looking at him. "I have 2 questions. If you answer truthfully, I will support you as the leader of the Titans," Xiao Zhong said straightforwardly. "First, why don't you modify your own genes? Second, what is the purpose of the embryo your leader gave me?" Unlike the Titanian leader, this opposition leader did not respond immediately. Instead, he pondered for a long time before saying, "Actually, among the Titans, this is not a secret. We are not the original inhabitants of Titan. We come from a star system outside your solar system, which you have named Libra. We escaped to Titan 2,000 years ago." "Escape?" Xiao Zhong and Yang Tianqi asked in unison. "Yes, escape. Our home planet is similar to Titan. 84,000 years ago, our ancestors quietly left our home planet. After more than 80,000 years of wandering, we finally arrived at Titan." The opposition leader spoke slowly. "As for why our ancestors escaped, it was because of division on our home planet. Some people conducted genetic experiments on our own bodies, creating a batch of modified Titanians. They are exceptionally intelligent and physically superior, dominating others in every aspect. Society began to divide, with the modified individuals occupying the upper echelons, while the unmodified Titanian became mere tools. The modified Titanian lived long lives, possessed extraordinary intelligence, and controlled the resources of society. Although they were only a small group, they firmly held the entire world in their grasp. In the end, the unmodified Titanian completely became tools, mere playthings for them. Social order collapsed. Ordinary Titanian lost their life goals and hope, with only the path of enslavement remaining, and they could never see a glimmer of hope. Moreover, they could not accept modification, as this small group controlled the genetic modification technology and did not allow anyone to alter their genes privately. Later, our ancestors built a biological spacecraft underground and incited ordinary people to revolt, because the lives of ordinary people were very oppressive. This revolt received a lot of responses from the lower classes, sweeping across the entire planet. However, the modified individuals' means were beyond what ordinary people could compare, and the revolt was quickly suppressed. Our ancestors took advantage of the chaos to pilot the biological spacecraft and escape from the home planet, wandering in space until we found Titan and settled down here. Xiao Zhong turned to Yang Tianqi and exchanged a glance. Yang Tianqi nodded slightly, clearly agreeing that the opposition leader's words were more credible. "It seems your ancestors intentionally incited the revolt. They are not good people," Yang Tianqi said. The opposition leader fell silent. "So, the modified embryos you sent us were actually ill-intentioned?" Xiao Zhong asked in a low voice. The opposition leader nodded. "This was done by them. We in the opposition do not agree with such actions. We are pacifists, and we strongly oppose invading Earth. We advocate for direct communication with Earthlings, making them understand that sending messages into the universe could attract the wrath of our home planet. We also oppose genetic modification of your humans, because once modified human genes appear, they will quickly occupy the upper echelons of society. And what happened on our home planet will soon occur in your world. This is fatal for all of humanity." Chapter 590. Potential enemies. The opposition leader hesitated for a moment and continued. "For us Titanian, it could also be fatal. Among the first batch of Titanian who arrived on Earth, there are our own people. We purposely left information there, hoping you would take it seriously and not allow this embryo to enter your society." Yang Tianqi turned to Xiao Zhong and asked, "Is this the reason you didn't let Xiao Jianer attend the elite university?" Xiao Zhong nodded and then shook his head. "I just instinctively didn't let him go to university. I didn't think that far ahead. A genetically modified person could cause upheaval in the entire world. This I truly did not foresee." Yang Tianqi asked softly, "How do you plan to arrange for Xiao Jianer?" Xiao Zhong sighed. "I have already instructed Jian not to send Xiao Jianer to university, and in the future, I will keep him hidden, letting him live his life quietly." Yang Tianqi nodded. "That's best. He's just a child, and just one person. He won't cause any major problems." The two walked out of the cabin, and Yang Tianqi asked, "What should we do now?" Xiao Zhong said, "That leader lied, and we can use this to make an example. We will support this opposition leader to become the leader of the Titans, taking control of Titan. We also need to learn their genetic technology." Xiao Zhong paused. "However, there is one thing we must stop immediately." "What is it?" "The exploration of space. They are right. Carelessly sending our location and information into the universe is an extremely dangerous move." Xiao Zhong said, "Even if we want to explore the universe, we must use the most covert methods that do not expose our location." Xiao Zhong and Yang Tianqi entered the cabin and quietly watched the Titan leader without speaking. Behind them, the opposition leader, with a shield like a fish, swam in. The Titan leader understood that they had obtained the answers they wanted. It had become quiet, and its temper was no longer volatile. Respectful Earthlings, I am the leader of the Titans. Collaborate with me, not with that woman. The number of them on Titan is less than 1/3. Most of the Titans follow my command. The opposition leader, however, remained silent. It had said everything it needed to say. One could say the fate of the Titans was in the hands of these two Earthlings. Xiao Zhong looked at the two of them and said, I will choose one of you to be the leader of the Titans, starting our cooperation with the Earthlings. As for who to choose, it depends on your performance from now on. Now we'll start a quiz. Answering correctly earns a point, and incomplete answers earn no points. Those who supplement and complete their answers earn a point. The one with the highest score will be the leader of the Titans, and the one with the lowest score will be executed on the spot. Do you understand? Both Titans nodded anxiously. The first question, what is your population? 1 billion. The opposition leader answered first. The Titan leader glared fiercely at the other, then focused on the second question. What is the current level of civilization on your home planet? Xiao Zhong asked. This question was a bit difficult. The Titan leader thought for a moment and said, I know this question better. We have a database that stores records of our ancestors. 80,000 years ago, those genetically modified people mastered space navigation technology. And it was with this technology that our ancestors developed spaceships and escaped from our home planet. According to our ancestors' records, the modified people on the home planet began to study the mysteries of our minds. The mysteries of genetics are infinite, especially when it comes to the brain, which is an extremely complex and profound field of study. However, I know that the level of genetic research we will have 80,000 years from now will not be comparable to that of the modified humans 80,000 years ago, said the leader of the Titans. The opposition leader added, as far as I know, the mother planet can perceive our existence through a certain mental technology. Yang Tianqi was taken aback. How do you know that? The opposition leader replied, that's because when they perceive us, some of us can also sense their presence. I am one of them. It's just that with our current technology, we still don't understand the principle behind it. Xiao Zhong was startled. This must be due to quantum entanglement, a mystery that humanity has yet to unravel. After some consideration, Xiao Zhong issued a command to execute the Titan leader and appointed the former opposition leader as the new Titan leader. When the opposition leader was set to return to the Titan planet, Xiao Zhong instructed them to hand over all genetic technologies. If there was the slightest concealment, the people of Earth would immediately launch another attack on the Titan planet. After sending off the Titans, Xiao Zhong quickly notified Zhang Xiyuan and Xiao Ling to continue preparing oxygen bombs while searching for larger celestial bodies rich in oxides in the Saturn system. Yang Tianqi exclaimed, Xiao Zhong, are you planning to exterminate the Titans? Xiao Zhong nodded. Their existence poses a threat to the solar system and to the people of Earth. The fact that they can be sensed by those modified humans is extremely dangerous. If the modified humans on their mother planet break through the technology of space travel, what awaits us will be a catastrophe. Xiao Zhong waved his hand fiercely. Therefore, we must sever their connections and leave no Titan alive. To achieve this goal, we need enough oxygen to create an explosion on Titan that will change its atmosphere, ensuring that all Titans perish. Yang Tianqi understood that they would need to stay on Titan for a while longer. On Earth, at an elite university, Xiao Jin'er raised the trophy in her hand under the gaze of thousands. This is the highest award for youth technology in all of humanity. Xiao Jin'er won this prestigious award at the age of less than 8, causing a sensation worldwide. It was a grand event broadcasted live globally. Her achievement attracted nearly all of humanity's attention, as well as the notice of a group of scientists. At the reproductive center in the imperial capital, a group of reproductive scientists were watching the live broadcast. One of the scientists adjusted his glasses and said, Isn't this the child of Commander Xiao? I'm not surprised he won. His genes are modified, making him a genius from birth. The scientist seemed to realize he had misspoken and quickly tried to slip away. However, his colleagues wouldn't let him go so easily, questioning him relentlessly, unable to withstand their inquiries. The reproductive scientist finally said, when Commander Xiao returned from under the Arctic ice, he brought back a gift from a Titan, which was an embryo. The embryo in question is from Chapter 591, titled Titan Star, which was destroyed. The reproductive scientist pointed to the television and said, That's him, Xiao Jin'er. Oh, no wonder. It turns out to be a human embryo modified by the Titan beings, which explains its strength, someone remarked. Others were intrigued. How did the Titan beings make modifications? The reproductive scientist adjusted his glasses and replied, I have compared the data. The modifications made by the Titan beings to the genes are not complex, and there were no significant alterations. I've pulled up the comparative data on genetic modifications, he continued. As you can see, there have been adjustments at over 300 locations in the gene sequences. According to our current data, all potentially disease-carrying genes have been modified. A female scientist looked at the screen displaying Xiao Jin'er and said somewhat enviously, If only I could have a child like that. This statement left everyone present momentarily stunned, and the previously lively atmosphere suddenly fell silent. Soon after, the scientists left, appearing to have their own thoughts. Before long, news about Xiao Jin'er being a genetically modified individual spread. It caused a significant stir, leading to societal upheaval. At the reproductive center in the capital, a scientist glanced around to ensure no one was watching and hurried to the embryo incubator with a syringe in hand. Inside the syringe was the genetic modification solution. Humanity's understanding of genetics has improved significantly compared to before the outbreak of the interstellar beast crisis. Humans can now make specific modifications to plants and animals. Artificial organisms have emerged, and humans successfully cloned the first mammoth after extinction using mammoth DNA. They even created the first dinosaur using incomplete dinosaur DNA information combined with genetic modification technology. With advancements in biological genetic technology, numerous extinct species have begun to reappear on Earth. The planet's temperature is rising, and the variety of animals is also recovering. All of this is a result of enhanced genetic technology. There have been improvements in human reproduction as well. Currently, humans use the embryo technology of the Titan beings to nurture the next generation. This technology was derived from Xiao Jin'er's placenta and protective shell, significantly reducing the burden of childbirth for humans. Humans only need to allow the embryo to develop in the uterus until a certain stage, after which it can be removed and placed in an artificial incubator for growth and development. This way, humans can achieve a plan of becoming pregnant once a month, and the growth rate of the population has also rapidly increased. It is now common for a family to have 8 or 9 children, with some families even having dozens of children. The state encourages childbirth, and all newborns are funded by the government for upbringing. Specialized institutions are responsible for raising these children from infancy to adulthood. The only thing parents need to provide is their love and care. This scientist is no different. His children are currently in the incubator. After much hesitation, he finally injected the genetic modification solution into one of his child's embryos. Little did he know, he was not alone in his thoughts. Many others shared the same desire. Even some people began to sell gene modification liquids on the black market. And those parents eager for their children to succeed spared no expense in purchasing these liquids, hoping to make their kids smarter and more outstanding. Above Titan, a stream of information continuously transmitted into the computer. Xiao Ling looked up and said to Xiao Zhong, "Brother, all the genetic technology transmitted from Titan has been fully received." Xiao Zhong waved his hand. "Then don't wait any longer. Prepare to bombard Titan." Yang Tianxi asked with some concern, "Aren't you worried that the information they transmitted might be false?" Xiao Zhong replied, "There will definitely be a lot of false information. Those who are not of our kind will surely have different intentions, especially since it's not even the same civilization. However, at least most of it is true. It will also give our scientists something to do. Let them discern the truth from the falsehood. What we need to do is erase any traces of this civilization's existence and restore safety and peace to the solar system." Xiao Zhong knew that Yang Tianxi's concerns were quite valid. The Titanians would not honestly transmit all their data to the people of Earth. Therefore, Xiao Zhong had no intention of collecting all their information. What is most important for scientific development? It is merely a concept. When Newton was struck on the head by an apple, it led him to ponder why apples do not fly into the sky, why they do not float in the air, but instead fall to the ground. This was just a thought, yet it initiated the steps towards scientific advancement and the era of significant scientific development. A thought from Einstein opened the journey of relativity, which classical physics could not explain, and simultaneously unlocked a small gateway to the mysteries of the universe, marking the beginning of a knowledge explosion. The same goes for genetic technology. It only requires some inspiration and guidance for humanity to experience another explosion in genetic science. Xiao Zhong was confident about this. Therefore, he did not need such vast genetic data from the Titanian. He only needed a stepping stone. "Are you ready?" Xiao Zhong asked. "All set," Yang Tianxi replied. The space fleet took nearly 3 years to capture a celestial body, several dozen kilometers long and weighing hundreds of thousands of tons. They covered this body with a thermal insulation layer and installed a nuclear propulsion system. This celestial body is rich in oxides, and its descent onto Titan will cause significant climate changes, raising the temperature on Titan by over 100 degrees and completely evaporating the methane present there. Without the methane oceans, the fragile bodies of the Titanian people would not be able to survive. Only by completely eliminating the Titanian race can peace return to Earth. This is the best method to eradicate the Titan civilization. Ignite, Xiao Zhong issued the attack command. The massive celestial body, wrapped in thermal insulation, began to descend toward Titan under the propulsion of nuclear energy. In space, Xiao Zhong watched as the enormous body streaked across the sky like a meteor, entering Titan's atmosphere. Everything was coming to an end. From the outbreak of the Starry Beast to today's final bombardment, nearly 30 years had passed. No one felt it was cruel. Destroying the inhabitants of Titan is the only way to ensure the safety of civilization on Earth. The Titan inhabitants represent the greatest security threat. A massive celestial body began to experience intense friction with the atmosphere, turning bright red, resembling an incredibly brilliant firework falling towards Titan. All the astronauts silently watched the direction of Titan below. This enormous celestial body was the nightmare of the Titan inhabitants. Finally, the celestial body exploded, triggering a series of chain reactions that caused fierce explosions, almost half of Titan suffering from the violent blasts. Chapter 592. Humanity's revenge has finally been realized. Moreover, the explosions continued to spread, as if the entire Titan was starting to burn. The surface temperature of Titan dropped to -50, -30, and -10 degrees, while observations of the surface temperature were continuously reported. At such temperatures, methane would turn into gas and completely evaporate. The environment that the Titan inhabitants relied on for survival no longer existed. When the explosions ceased, Titan had transformed into a hellish landscape. A large amount of dust obscured the sky, while the atmosphere was filled with various gases, expanding nearly twice its original size. The surface of Titan was dry and desolate. Violent storms swept across the entire Titan continent. The once liquid methane oceans and ice layers had completely vanished. The Titan inhabitants were thus annihilated. Humanity's enemies were finally eradicated. 3 months later, as the fierce storms on Titan finally calmed down a bit, human landing probes descended from various angles onto Titan, transmitting images of the devastated Titan back to the space fleet. Wherever these probes went, there was devastation. The former liquid oceans had entirely disappeared. However, Titan did not become a dead planet. Many genetically modified organisms continued to thrive there. Only the fragile Titan inhabitants had completely vanished. Their bodies were extremely prone to liquefaction. Under high temperatures, they would quickly turn into pools of liquid and eventually evaporate, disappearing entirely. Return home, Xiao Zhong issued the command. A year and a half later, a grand welcome celebration unfolded across Earth. People sang and danced to greet the returning remote military personnel. Unbeknownst to many, the space fleet led by Xiao Zhong had been away for 6 years. However, everything was worth it. Humanity had eliminated the threat and completely destroyed the Titan inhabitants. To ensure the safety of human civilization, the Titan inhabitants had to be eradicated. Furthermore, to heal the emotional scars of humanity, the Titan inhabitants also had to be destroyed. Earth once had a population of nearly 7 billion, but after the outbreak of the celestial beast, the number of humans plummeted to just a few tens of thousands. After years of recovery and growth, humanity experienced a significant increase in numbers, but the total was still too low, only reaching several 100,000 now. The deep-seated grievances from the bloodshed of 7 billion people could not go unavenged. The space fleet docked at the lunar port and then returned to Earth via shuttle ships. All personnel had to undergo rehabilitation training before they could officially re-enter human society. Earth Rehabilitation Center. Xiao Zhong was slowly undergoing rehabilitation training. After living in space for 6 years, although there are gravity chambers to help strengthen muscles, it still falls far short compared to life on Earth. This group of heroes wants to reintegrate into society, which requires at least 2 months of rehabilitation training. Dad, a boy about 1.7 meters tall walked in and called out to Xiao Zhong. Xiao Zhong immediately recognized this was Xiao Jianer, who looked remarkably like him, a younger version of himself, even though he himself was only in his 20s. Xiao Zhong. Jianer seemed a bit shy and hesitated to look at Xiao Zhong because Xiao Zhong still didn't know that Xiao Jianer was studying at an elite university. Honey Jianer, come here and let me take a look, Xiao Zhong waved. When Xiao Jianer reached his side, Xiao Zhong was surprised to see how tall he had grown. Wow, you're not even 12 yet, right? Dad, I just turned 12, Xiao Jianer replied. You look like a normal child. Oh, what grade are you in? Xiao Zhong felt a bit guilty since he hadn't been around to watch his child grow for several years. Just 1 year left until graduation, Xiao Jianer said. Graduation? From elementary school? Xiao Zhong found it strange. Xiao Jianer paused, unsure how to respond. Summoning his courage, he stepped forward and said, not elementary school graduation. I'll defend my doctoral thesis next year, and once I pass, I'll graduate. Xiao Zhong suddenly stood up, but his bones were not strong enough to support his body, and he swayed a bit. Xiao Jianer quickly steadied him. Which university? Xiao Zhong asked seriously. Elite University. Xiao Jianer answered eagerly. He wasn't nervous. Instead, he felt a sense of pride because his current achievements could be considered unprecedented. He had set records for genius in human history. Xiao Zhong sat down heavily, looked up at Xiao Jianer, and said softly, Son, promise me something. Dad, you say it. And I will listen, Xiao Jianer replied, still possessing a childlike nature and a blind admiration for his father. I remember when you were little. You said you wanted to be a hero and lead humanity to drive away all invaders, right? Xiao Zhong asked. Xiao Jianer nodded, yes. Xiao Zhong took a deep breath. Then promise me, give up your dream. Just be a quiet, unassuming scientist who focuses on research, okay? Xiao Jianer was taken aback. Which child doesn't want to be a great hero? However, his father's authority loomed large in his heart, and with some bitterness, he said, "Dad, I will listen to you." Xiao Zhong nodded, feeling a bit more at ease. A hurried footsteps approached, and Xiao Zhong glanced over to see his sister, Xiao Xiao, who had taken over his command role to manage humanity globally. Her expression was serious. "You all should go back. In 2 months, I can return home." Xiao Zhong told Xiao Jian'er and Jian'er to leave, and only then did Xiao Xiao slowly come over. She sat beside Xiao Zhong, her face grave. "What's wrong?" Xiao Zhong had a bad feeling. Xiao Xiao turned her head to glance at the departing Xiao Jian'er, and then whispered, "You know everything?" Xiao Zhong nodded, somewhat reproachfully saying, "Jian'er is being reckless. As her aunt, you should have stopped her." Xiao Xiao was at a loss for words. Xiao Zhong sighed, "From now on, we need to tightly control Xiao Jian'er's movements." Xiao Xiao raised her head to stare at Xiao Zhong, her expression revealing something unusual. Xiao Zhong noticed a hint of something amiss. "What's wrong?" Xiao Xiao replied, "Xiao Jian'er's identity has already been leaked." Xiao Zhong pondered for a moment and said, "So what if it's leaked? As long as we control her actions tightly from now on and prevent her from marrying and having children, it will be fine." Xiao Zhao's expression grew even stranger. Xiao Zhong keenly sensed Xiao Zhao's implication. "Is there a problem?" Xiao Xiao took a deep breath. For years ago, Xiao Jian'er won the highest award for young scientists. At that time, her identity was already leaked. Xiao Zhong was taken aback, as he had a vague idea of what had happened. Chapter 593. The crisis brought by the modified humans. Many reproductive scientists know that Jian'er is a genetically modified human. Because Jian'er is the child of the human commander, she has a strong exemplary influence, resulting in Xiao Xiao sighing as many genetically modified children have been born in recent years. Xiao Xiao said with some self-blame, "It's all my fault for not controlling the situation well. Now, I don't know what to do. It's all up to you." "How many?" Xiao Zhong asked thoughtfully. Xiao Xiao replied softly, "According to known data, genius children are emerging worldwide, and there are thousands recorded. Moreover, there are rumors that children born from modified genes are geniuses. With no side effects or hidden, potential diseases, they are considered safe. Therefore, there is a large amount of genetic modification serum being sold on the black market." Xiao Xiao sighed. In just 4 years, it has spiraled out of control. Xiao Zhong fell silent. He didn't expect that the Titan aliens conspiracy had finally come to fruition. The embryos he had brought back had become the greatest hidden danger and enemy to humanity. "Brother, how about I take on the role of the villain? I will issue a global arrest warrant to eliminate all genetically modified humans," Xiao Xiao suggested. "Are you going to eliminate Xiao Jian'er as well?" Xiao Zhong asked with a bitter smile. Xiao Xiao was taken aback. "Of course not. As an enforcer, how could I act out of personal interest? If you really issue an order to eliminate modified humans, it would mean Xiao Jian'er must die. Otherwise, it's impossible to stop the circulation of genetic modification serum on the black market." Xiao Zhong understood the human desire for their children to succeed all too well. Many parents would rather work hard all their lives and spend all their money to have their children genetically modified to ensure their success. If he couldn't set an example himself, how could he make others understand the seriousness of the situation? However, even a tiger does not eat its own cubs, let alone humans. "So what should we do? I can't possibly kill my nephew, Xiao Jian'er. Besides, she's so outstanding. She won the highest award for young scientists at the age of 8. Xiao Xiao said with frustration that he is now a role model for the people of the nation. Outside the conference room of the rehabilitation center, Jian was anxiously pacing back and forth. Inside, Xiao Zhong was having a serious conversation with Xiao Jian'er. Jian knew that this conversation might be about Xiao Jian'er's life or death. From Xiao Zhong's expression, she could tell that this discussion was extremely serious. Even when Xiao Zhong had gone alone to meet the Titans under the extreme ice sea, he had never looked this grave. Jian was not mistaken. Xiao Zhong was indeed having a difficult conversation with Xiao Jian'er. "Do you understand everything I just said?" Xiao Zhong asked in a low voice. Xiao Jian'er was very excited. Although he was exceptionally intelligent, he was still only 12 years old and emotionally still a child. Moreover, genetically modified individuals, like ordinary people, also go through a rebellious phase. Xiao Jian'er was clearly in that phase. "I won't do anything to harm humanity," Xiao Jian'er said. Xiao Zhong reached out and patted Xiao Jian'er on the head. "I know. You are my child. I have watched you grow up, and I certainly know that you would never do anything to harm humanity." Xiao Zhong sighed. However, with the large-scale emergence of genetically modified infants, who can guarantee that all these modified children are good people? Xiao Zhong said with a heavy tone. "Look at you. You are so outstanding that even I, as a human commander, feel somewhat inferior. The gap between you and ordinary people is so obvious. So far, many talented children have emerged among other modified individuals. They can walk in 3 months, read books at 1 year, and graduate elementary school by 2 years old. If this continues, society will experience 2 extreme polarizations. We must avoid the lessons learned from the Titans. If society becomes polarized, Ordinary people will completely become slaves to the modified individuals. Xiao Zhong sighed. This is extremely dangerous. Xiao Jianer still felt somewhat unconvinced. If my genes can be modified, then others can be modified too. Wouldn't the overall quality of humanity improve? Xiao Zhong shook his head. Why were diamonds precious in the past? Because they were rare. In reality, there are not few diamond mines on Earth. They were just strictly controlled in production by a few diamond companies. They understood very well that once the number of diamonds increased significantly, their scarcity would be lost, and diamonds would lose their value as treasures. With your high IQ, you should understand this principle. Other modified individuals surely know it too. To maintain their superiority, uniqueness, and sense of superiority, once they gain power, they will control the number of modified individuals in large quantities. In any era, rulers behave this way. They will go to great lengths to maintain their status and position. For example, the elite universities in a certain country not only require exams, but also recommendation letters. What are recommendation letters? They are a means of controlling numbers. Without being part of the upper elite circle, one cannot obtain a recommendation letter. And for children from ordinary families, they use a dumbing-down education method to make them learn happily. Thus, they become ignorant masses, making it easier for them to control. The division of classes will never disappear. Therefore, once the reformists seize power, they will control the number of reformists, artificially creating classes and hierarchies in human society. The top 1% of reformists will enslave over 90% of ordinary people, which is almost certain to happen. Xiao Jianer is well aware that his father is right. This is determined by the nature of society and human nature itself. The reason altruism is precious is that it is rare. Greed and selfishness are detestable precisely because they are ubiquitous. Dad, what do you want to do with us? Kill us? Or lock us up? Xiao Jianer finally asked this question. Xiao Zhong looked at Xiao Jianer, who was almost identical to him, and sighed. I don't know. But I know you are a good child, and you have exceptional intelligence. I hope you can help your father think of a way to see how we can curb the potential crisis of reformists. A weight lifted off Xiao Jianer's heart. He had always thought his father was saying a final goodbye, but now he realized that his father was not that kind of person. Although his father was not very old, he possessed a remarkably upright heart. Dad, give me 3 days. I will think it through carefully. I hope to find a good solution to this crisis, Xiao Jianer said. Seeing Xiao Jianer come out, Jian was worried and pulled him aside, whispering, Jianer, what did your dad say to you? Xiao Jianer forced a smile. Mom, it's nothing. But since it concerns state secrets, I can't say much. Chapter 594, The Conclusion First Universe. Rehabilitation Training Room. Xiao Zhong was undergoing training. Xiao Yi slowly walked in, sitting down opposite Xiao Zhong, and said softly, I didn't expect this outcome. Accompanying him was Yi Wanqing, whose hair was beginning to turn gray. The information received from the Titans put immense pressure on both Xiao Yi and Yi Wanqing. To maintain the convergence of the universe, Xiao Yi and Yi Wanqing, who did not exist in other universes, faded from the historical stage, leaving the world to the young people like Xiao Zhong who existed simultaneously in other universes. All worlds in the parallel universe are essentially a community. If humans in other universes face problems, then humans in the first universe will eventually encounter issues as well. Therefore, all humans across the universes must work together to elevate humanity to a higher level. However, the emergence of Xiao Jianer and the reformists has placed humanity in an extremely dangerous state, particularly in the first universe. With a population base of 2 billion, the number of reformists is even more substantial. If this issue cannot be handled properly, should humanity follow the old path of the Titans, ordinary Earth people might have no choice but to escape the solar system, seeking a new home in other star systems. Dad, Aunt Yi, do you have any solutions? Xiao Zhong asked. As two of the most brilliant minds among humanity, especially with their extensive experience, Xiao Yi and Yi Wanqing, Xiao Zhong truly hopes to receive their assistance. Xiao Yi glanced at Xiao Jianer, who had just walked out, and said, Did you not assign the problem to Xiao Jianer? Xiao Zhong sighed. After all, Xiao Jianer is also human, and being human means having personal interests. I cannot completely entrust such a daunting responsibility to him. Father, you are wise. You have experienced the formidable counterattack against the alien beasts in the starry sky. Perhaps, you might have different insights. In the Saturn system, not far from Titan, a white planet is quietly rotating. This is the second moon of Saturn, a planet covered in a thick layer of ice. Beneath this ice layer lies a liquid ocean, where a massive creature resides in the dark depths, resembling those found beneath the ice at the North Pole. Within this creature, a faint glow flickers, illuminating an octopus-like being swimming within. Meanwhile, in the vastness of space, a fleet is heading toward the solar system. This fleet hails from the Libra constellation and has been traversing space for thousands of years, with plans to continue its journey. They have sensed the presence of their kind in the distant solar system, and they are determined to explore and conquer this unknown planet. In the first universe, Xiao Yi, Xiao Zhong, and Xiao Jian'er stood on the towering steel wall, overlooking the scene below. Behind them stood Nie Sihua, Zhong Qianzhu, Zheng Shuiyao, Xiao Xiao, Xiao Ling, Xiao Long, and many others from their extended family. Although the war had long since ended, the Great Steel Wall, regarded as humanity's eighth wonder, will remain forever as a historical monument to humanity's counteroffensive against alien invasions. Today marks the 30th anniversary of the victory against the alien beasts, and countless people are flocking to the base of the steel wall to participate in this grand commemorative event. Xiao Yi noticed many familiar faces in the crowd. Zhang Xiaolong was walking with his family, including Zhang Xiyuan and Zhang Sikong, recounting tales of their past glories. Wang Chang and Wang Yusi walked arm in arm, cheerfully searching for the spot where they had once pledged their love. Yi Wanqing, Yang Buwei, Yang Tianqi, and their family were also strolling along the steel wall, greeting Zhao Taizhu and Yang Shuiying as they passed by. Gao Daqiang and his wife were chatting and laughing in the crowd, accompanied by Yi Wen and Tina, with a few clearly mixed-race children following behind them. Jack had also arrived from a distant region, and although Uncle Hassan's hair had turned completely white, he still appeared to be in great spirits. However, Hanny was struggling a bit, needing to catch his breath after a few steps, but this did not dampen their excitement. Jin Jishuan and Li Buan paused to look up at the sky. This is the place where they once fought, and where they helped each other and struggled together. They went through life and death, and welcomed their happy lives. Lin Dashan, Lu Xiaofei, and Wang Bing gathered together. Although they did not shine as brightly as Xiao Yi, they also made the right choices in life thanks to his reminders, stepping onto a broad path. Hua Chen held his wife Ria's hand, and beside them gathered a group of old comrades who once guarded the borders of a certain country. Xiao Ming, Li Bing, and others. These battle-hardened soldiers reunited, filled with deep emotions. Lai saw Ruya from a distance, and he felt a pang of pain in his heart. However, he had built his own life, marrying a girl from a nation that was once his greatest enemy, having his own children, and living his life by the Steel City Wall. In front of the monument dedicated to the martyrs who fought against the celestial beasts, many people gathered. They laid flowers at the heroes' monument to commemorate the sacrifices of the warriors. Everyone knew that without the contributions of these heroes, there would be no happy life today. In a corner of the martyrs' cemetery, there was a special grave, the tombstone of Lu Jian. Zhang Haofeng, Zhao Shi, and Fang Shihong laid a bouquet of flowers. This place was already filled with many flowers. Lu Jian's deeds were included in textbooks, and every year during the Qingming festival, elementary school students would come here to lay flowers for the unsung heroes. Looking back at the past 30 years, although it was hard and full of challenges, everything was worth it. Xiao Yi looked at these familiar faces, at this familiar landscape, and at this poignant scene, and suddenly a thought surged in his heart. He turned to Xiao Jian'er and Xiao Zhong, smiling slightly. I have a solution. What solution? Xiao Zhong and Xiao Jian'er asked excitedly. They all knew that Xiao Yi was the most resourceful one, and nothing could stump him. Even the issue of the reformers that troubled everyone. He surely had a way to resolve it. Xiao Yi smiled mysteriously. It's simple, just throw this problem to the readers. The omnipotent readers will definitely come up with a good solution. Xiao Yi grinned mischievously. What do you think? Isn't my idea brilliant? The end of the book. P.S. This book has concluded, and I thank all the readers for their companionship over the past 6 months. Indeed, as many readers have said, although the first 400 chapters had some flaws, they were still quite exciting. The latter parts were somewhat lacking. This is also due to my shortcomings, as I lacked sufficient planning and writing skills. In my next book, I will try to avoid these issues. The new book has already been signed and is a comedic, sci-fi, suspense, detective, and fantasy type of story. The title is Urban, My Girlfriend is an Intelligent Robot. It tells the story of humanity in 2045, where class division has led to a split between the North and South. The North has not developed, while the South has undergone tremendous changes with highly advanced technology. The protagonist is an unnamed individual from the North who, due to a series of twists of fate, becomes a crucial figure in the progress of world civilization. A series of stories unfold around him. This book features the joys of small characters as well as the grandeur of great heroes. I hope all readers will support it.